Chapter 1584. Long Yu couldn't increase his martial realm for now. It wasn't that he didn't have enough creations. In fact, after coming out of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region, he had 2 supreme-grade creations on him. As for the supreme-grade creations and the Sky Crystal creations, he had more than he could use. This was a huge fortune for ordinary people, but for Long Yu, it was only to make it more convenient for him to increase his martial realm. With these creations, he didn't need to complete the missions of the Demigod Academy, and he could obtain enough creations to increase his martial realm. The main thing was that Long Yu hadn't been a 5th-stage dominator for long enough, and his realm wasn't stable enough. If he forcefully increased his martial realm, it would result in a less effective increase. Once his basic strength fell behind, he wouldn't be able to make up for it in the future. Therefore, he had to put aside his martial realm for now. Long Yu was alone in his personal space, and he started to study all the things he had obtained in the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. Among the things he could use, there was a high-grade source item, the Dark Flame Ghost Cable, and 2 other items, the Beginner Source item, the Divine Mirror Stone, and the ordinary Divine Source item, the Small Golden Sword. For Long Yu, these were all enhancements to his combat weapon. The Divine Mirror Stone was something he could use quite easily in the deathmatch segment, especially the structure and explosive power of Mirror City, which was extremely powerful. However, after coming out, Long Yu discovered that he couldn't use the Divine Mirror Stone's full power. This was restricted by his current martial realm. Even if he reached the Demigod realm, he couldn't use the full power of a Divine Source item at the beginning. Of course, if it was an ordinary Divine Source item, such as the Small Golden Sword, he could easily use its full power as long as he reached the Demigod realm. However, if it was a modified Divine Source item, the higher the grade, the more time needed to temper it. The so-called tempering was actually just a cultivator using a similar Divine Origin item in battle. Naturally, they would be able to use more and more of the Divine Origin item's power. Right now, Long Yu's main body hadn't used the Divine Mirror Stone or the Dark Flame Ghost Chains at all. Long Yu was still unable to use these 2 modified Divine Source items. Even if he could use them, he wouldn't be able to unleash much of their power. They weren't even as powerful as the Netherworld Dragon Dagger and the Dragon Skeleton Ancient Tower. Therefore, he needed more time to familiarize himself with these 2 Divine Source items. Compared to the Netherworld Dragon Dagger and the Dragon Bone Ancient Tower, which had become Long Yu's companions, these Divine Origin Source items would not develop self-awareness no matter what. Therefore, they were more like battle tools. As long as he could unleash a certain amount of their power, Long Yu would be able to use these 2 combat weapons to defeat opponents that he had never been able to defeat before. Of course, he couldn't do it now. Apart from the Divine Origin Source items, Long Yu had obtained a lot of other things in the Eclipse Moon Ancient domain. Once the temporarily invisible mark of the God of Fire on his forehead was activated, he would be able to start comprehending the divine power of golden flames in his body. This was a divine power that surpassed the eternal divine language. Its level was even higher than the power of a demigod. However, Long Yu hadn't reached the demigod level yet. It seemed that it would be very slow for him to comprehend this divine power of golden flames. The divine spirit martial skill, gathering spiritual light, was a very common method for Long Yu. It had even surpassed the boundless grasp and fighting celestial body that he used before. This was because the divine spirit martial skill, gathering spiritual light, was very simple and crude. It was fast and powerful. It was easier to use in battle to defeat the opponent in one move. In his mind, the special patterns from the gray stone had been engraved, which made his comprehension of various powers several times faster. He didn't know what these special patterns were. Therefore, after calculating what he had obtained in the Eclipse Moon Ancient domain, he went to ask the Demigod Flamboyant. The Demigod Flamboyant had a lot of things to do at the moment. This included gathering the information of the cultivators who died in the Eclipse Moon Ancient domain and distributing it to the various departments on the battlefield. She had to deal with all these things. When Long Yu came over to look for her, she was busy. Fortunately, she had Moon Song to help her. The two of them worked a lot more efficiently together. Long Yu explained his problem directly. Flamboyant was a little surprised. You've already activated the ancient god brain realm. Ancient god brain realm? What's that? When Long Yu heard this, he felt that this thing seemed very powerful. It's something that every cultivator can activate. However, in the history of humans and demons, there are very few cultivators who have been able to activate the ancient god brain realm. Every one of them has left their name in history, Flamboyant said with a serious expression. Let's talk about the effects of the ancient god brain realm first. Generally speaking, the abilities of us cultivators are limited. It's said that after the ancient god brain realm is activated, some ancient god patterns and ancient god seals can be carved into the ancient god brain realm. The former can strengthen one's special abilities in certain aspects, while the latter can improve the effects of certain martial arts secret techniques. As for the method to activate the ancient god brain realm, humans and demons don't have it at all. It can only be said that it's only possible to activate the ancient god brain realm by chance. However, even if the ancient god brain realm is activated, it's still very difficult to obtain the ancient god patterns and ancient god seals. There are some in the Eclipse Moon ancient domain, but not many. After the explanation, Long Yu realized how lucky he was. He had actually opened the ancient god brain domain, which not many people in the human race or the demon race were able to open. It could even be said that activating the ancient god brain realm was even more difficult than stepping into the demigod realm. This meant that the cultivator would receive an extra boost in strength. If that's the case, then the mysterious pattern on the gray stone is the ancient god mark, Long Yu thought to himself. He had already engraved an ancient god sigil in the ancient god's brain region, which took up about 1/5 of the brain region. It could increase the speed at which one could comprehend various powers. Perhaps this ancient god sigil could be called the sigil of comprehension. At the moment, he still had a gray stone, which was a treasure from the Eclipse Moon ancient domain. It was a treasure obtained from the death match, and its effect might be even more obvious than the pattern of enlightenment. Now, Long Yu's ancient god brain realm had a capacity of about 500 spaces. Space was just a general description. In fact, the ancient god's brain region was a very abstract existence. Long Yu only knew that it was in his mind, but it was hard to determine where it was. Now that he had activated the ancient god brain realm, the 500 spaces were basically filled. The ancient god seals that strengthened the worldly pure body came from the abyssal prison steel. There were a total of 198 mysterious patterns, which occupied 225 spaces. Long Yu had carved all of them into the ancient god brain realm. The ancient god seals that strengthened the devil dust heart temporarily occupied 132 spaces. There were also 100 spaces that were engraved with runes of comprehension. Right now, Long Yu had no idea how to expand the ancient god brain realm. After all, he didn't even know how to be a demigod. In that case, he had to remove the ancient god seals from the worldly pure body before he could try to carve new ancient god patterns. There were 9 levels of the ancient god seals that strengthened the worldly pure body, and each level had 22 ancient god seals. However, among the 198 ancient god seals, each ancient god seal had different effects on the worldly pure body. Although each ancient god seal occupied a space in the ancient god brain realm, the effects were different. For the ancient god seals that matched the 9th level of the worldly pure body, each ancient god seal could improve the effect by almost 10%. However, for the ancient god seal that matched the 1st level of the worldly pure body, the effect could only be improved by 1%. The difference was almost 10 times. Long Yu calculated. Even if he removed all the first 6 ancient god seals, the overall effect of the worldly pure body would still be improved by more than 5 times. Therefore, he had an idea. Could he keep the ancient god seals of the worldly pure body in the last 3 levels and remove all the ancient god seals in the first 6 levels? The ancient god brain realm was an unknown domain and a special existence for both Long Yu and other human beings and demons. Right now, even the demigod experts of the human race and the demon race hadn't opened the ancient god brain realm yet. In order to find the relevant information about the ancient Godbrain realm, he had to go to the library of the Demigod College and see if there was any relevant information. Long Yu didn't linger at Flamboyant's place. Instead, he directly went to the library. After all, he had obtained a lot of things in the eroding Moon Ancient domain, and those things were enough for the boy in the library to find enough information for him. After Long Yu came out of the library of the Demigod College, he was quite confused, because there was only a little information about the ancient Godbrain realm in the entire library, and there was no way to improve the ancient Godbrain realm. It was quite vexing for him. It seemed that he had to give up part of the enhancement effect of the worldly pure body for now. Also, Long Yu's secret martial art, Devil Dust Heart, had reached the 9th level, and he could totally start to understand the ancient God seals in the next 3 levels to improve the Devil Dust Heart. However, in the files in the library, he did find a way to control the ancient Godbrain realm, including adjusting the ancient God stripes and ancient God seals. It was also possible to remove the ancient God seals from the brain, as long as he had a strong willpower. But at this moment, Long Yu's willpower was definitely not weak. The worldly pure body was like a barrier for Long Yu, which could protect him from some control methods and mental attacks. But right now, he could only bear the pain and remove part of the ancient God seals in the worldly pure body to weaken the effect. Chapter 1585. What followed was a rather long training session. Of course, Long Yu couldn't stay in the Demigod College to train. He planned to return to the Void Galaxy. Now that Consort Yu had become a demigod, if he returned to the Void Galaxy, he would be able to release Ji Tao from the primeval relic of the multi-winged race. She would no longer need to guard the demigod statue of the multi-winged race. Together with the Geo Dragon Emperor's body that Ji Tao occupied and Consort Yu, who had just become a demigod, the two of them should be enough to completely destroy the statue. At this moment, Long Yu finally understood why there were so many corpses of demigods in the primeval relic of the multi-winged race. It was because there were a lot of demigods in the Void Galaxy in the first place. It was just that in the remote corner of the human race and the demon race, they seemed a bit shabby. Long Yu didn't stay in the Demigod College for too long. He also told the Black Tiger and the Demigod Gaudi about the possible attacks from the six-winged race, the mechanical race, and the sword race. The two of them could deal with the specific movements of the human race and the demon race. Long Yu didn't need to be a busybody. Besides, even if Long Yu wanted to be a busybody, some people might not be willing to. Senior Consort Yu, shall we go back to the Void Galaxy now? Long Yu found Consort Yu with Red Oriole and Moon Song and asked Consort Yu to go back. Of course, he wasn't asking Consort Yu to go back. He was just asking. If she had other plans, Long Yu could go back by himself. Well, let's go back first. There are a lot of things that need to be taken care of. Also, we've gained a lot this time. We have to make the entire Void Galaxy stronger in a short time. At the very least, we need more demigod experts in our force. Don't we have 3 ultimate creations in total? Said Consort Yu with a smile. Long Yu nodded. He had 2 supreme-grade creations on him that could allow 2 people with enough talent to directly break through the bottleneck and step directly into the demigod realm from the peak of the 7th phase Great Sovereign Realm. The candidates that Long Yu had in mind were, of course, Red Oriole and Moonsong. After all, he was the only one in the entire galaxy who could step into the demigod level. If even Red Oriole and Moonsong were not talented enough, most of the others would not be able to meet the requirements. As for who Consort Yu would give that top-grade creation item to, Long Yu did not know. Moreover, he did not need to think too much about it. In any case, Consort Yu would make her own decision. In the beginning, Long Yu had given the 4 supreme-grade creations to Consort Yu, Imperial Wind, Frost, and Long Zitian. He wanted them to choose some talented people so that the human and Yao races could produce more demigod experts in a short time. If Long Yu had to choose himself, to be honest, his circle was a little too narrow. He might not be able to choose some of the best geniuses. Indeed, Long Yu had given up a great opportunity to strengthen his own force. But to Long Yu, there would be many more opportunities like this in the future. He did not need to be in a hurry. There were many things to do when he returned to the Void Galaxy this time. First, Long Yu chose a Revelation Grade Divine Rune Origin and decided to bring it back with him. The Revelation Grade Divine Rune Origin he chose contained the power of the Shattering Thunder Divine Rune derived from the metal element's primordial power. The Shattering Thunder Divine Rune was a special kind of lightning. Its destructive power was far greater than that of normal lightning divine runes. It was perfect for the kids in the Void Galaxy to cultivate. After all, the Void Galaxy already had an absolute beginning gold pond that could help them comprehend the metal element's primordial power. After comprehending the metal element's primordial power, it would be much easier to comprehend the Shattering Thunder Divine Rune. Moreover, the power of the rune would be much greater. Long Yu had brought back 2 other Enlightenment-grade divine rune origins. One of them was a spatial divine rune derived from water elemental primordial power, and the other was a fire elemental divine rune derived from fire elemental primordial power. They weren't particularly compatible with the galaxy as a whole. As for people like Scarlet Flame, if they wanted to comprehend the Revelation Grade Fire Element Divine Rune, Long Yu had a way to get them a spot in the other 2 divine rune origins. This time, Long Yu could be said to have returned with great rewards. The rewards were mainly divided into 2 batches. The first batch was what he had obtained in the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. The second batch was what Long Yu had obtained in the Death Battle Void when he turned into the Golden Flame Giant. The latter had basically been distributed. As for the former, Long Yu could directly take it back and distribute it to the others in the Void Galaxy. Basically, among the things he obtained in the Eclipse Moon Ancient domain, there were a lot of Divine Source artifacts and broken Divine Source artifacts. There were also a small number of God Spirit martial skills, Heaven Crystal rank 1st grade, Supreme grade, and so on. Long Yu only kept the items he needed to become a demigod. He planned to distribute the rest of the items to the others in the Void Galaxy. After saying goodbye to Gaudi and the others, Long Yu and the 3 girls officially left the Demigod College. At the same time, the former students of the Demigod College, Frost and Imperial Wind, also came to say goodbye. But now the 2 of them could be said to have graduated from the Demigod College. They had successfully entered the Demigod level and completed the purpose of the Demigod College. Maybe they would become mentors of the Demigod College, or maybe they would directly participate in the racial affairs of the human race and the demon race. But that had nothing to do with Long Yu. Long Zaiqian, on the other hand, didn't come to see them off. Of course, Long Yu didn't need him to see them off. In terms of time, the Eclipse Moon Ancient region ended just in time. After returning, Long Yu and the others only rested for 7 days, and it was just the time when the girl Jitao opened the space-time tunnel to the Void Galaxy. It had been 3 months since the beginning of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. Long Yu was in a good mood after returning to the Void Galaxy after 3 months, mainly because his martial arts level had improved a lot compared to before he left. Also, there was no bottleneck to the demigod level after his return. He only needed about a year to consolidate his strength, and then he would directly become a demigod. After reaching the demigod level, Long Yu's goal was to become a god. After all, he was someone who had the mark of the divine throne of fire. If there was anyone in this world who could become a god, Long Yu was definitely one of them. After returning to the Void Galaxy, Consort Yu directly went to help the girl Jitao completely destroy the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race. As for Long Yu, he gave the 2 ultimate items of creation to Red Oriole and Moon Song respectively. He told them to try to absorb the power inside and break through to the demigod level after their current realm was consolidated. This process would probably still take a few months. During this period of time, the 2 girls would basically be in a state of seclusion. Long Yu took the 2 special elixirs and found Liao Lele, an alchemist in the Void Galaxy. Liao Lele's martial arts realm had now been improved to the 3rd phase of the Great Sovereign Realm. The power of the fire attribute divine text that he had comprehended had long been perfected. He even had an understanding of the primordial power of the fire attribute. Compared to the human clan and the demon clan, Liao Lele was definitely an expert now. He was no longer as weak as before. Along the way, the bitter sea medicine cauldron that Long Yu gave her at the beginning had helped her a lot. It was exactly because of the bitter sea medicine cauldron that she could refine all kinds of precious elixirs. Then, she could rely on these elixirs to improve her martial arts realm faster. The higher the martial arts realm, the higher the grade of elixirs she could refine. All of this was a virtuous cycle. In the beginning, it was just an ancient bitter sea medicine cauldron combat weapon. No one would have thought that it would have such a great impact on her. Moreover, it was not only on her, but also on other people in the Void Galaxy. All kinds of elixirs she refined were distributed to many of her friends in the Void Galaxy, which greatly improved their martial arts realm. In particular, after Long Yu brought back all kinds of elixir refining materials, Liao Lele basically had an endless supply of elixir refining elixirs. Now, not only could she refine elixirs for the human clan, but she could also refine elixirs for the demon clan. Most of the time, she could directly refine elixirs that could be used by both races. The bitter sea medicine cauldron was not only a combat weapon for refining elixirs, but also contained a lot of alchemy knowledge. When Liao Lele and the bitter sea medicine cauldron reached an unparalleled level and gave birth to its own spiritual consciousness, her alchemy knowledge improved by leaps and bounds. As long as she had the materials, she could even refine more special elixirs like the 8 Supreme Blood Pill. All in all, Liao Lele was no longer the immature little girl she used to be. Long Yu found her and asked her to help him identify 2 special elixirs that he had brought out of the eroding moon ancient domain. These 2 elixirs were common to all races. Of course, pure spiritual life forms like the Soul Clan would not be able to take such elixirs. Brother Long, you're finally back. I was so worried. Let little Dan take a look at these elixirs. You should be able to recognize them. Liao Lele's bright eyes lit up with joy at the first sight of Long Yu. She took the 2 elixirs and carefully placed them into the bitter sea medicine cauldron beside her. The bitter sea medicine cauldron was the little Dan that she had mentioned. It already had its own consciousness and seemed to be a cheerful young man. Now that Liao Lele was accompanied by Liao Lele, she did not feel lonely. She did not miss Long Yu as much as before. Long Yu was happy to see this. He did not know how far he could go on the path of martial arts, but he hoped that he would not have too deep of a bond with others as much as possible, lest something happened to him and he made others sad. In any case, although Long Yu knew that he was qualified to become a deity, he was still in a very dangerous state. The golden 6-winged creature was like a fishbone stuck in Long Yu's throat. It might appear in front of him at any time and bring him trouble that he could not resist. Before that, he had to improve his own strength as much as possible, or rather, improve the overall strength of the entire Void Galaxy. Chapter 1586. Long Yu threw the 2 special elixirs into the bitter sea medicine cauldron and let Dan identify them. Anyway, Long Yu didn't know what these 2 special elixirs were used for. As a consciousness generated by the alchemy cauldron, even if Dan couldn't tell what these 2 elixirs were, he should be able to see their general effects. In the joint expectation of Long Yu and Liao Lele, Dan soon came to a conclusion. He told Liao Lele the conclusion directly. After all, he and Liao Lele were telepathically connected, so there was no misunderstanding. Then Liao Lele told Long Yu, "These 2 elixirs are divine elixirs with divine power. As for the specific effects, they are very simple. One of them can double your power density, and the other can double your physical strength. These 2 elixirs turn out to be divine elixirs." Oh, Dan seems to know a lot. Does he still have the memory of the bitter sea medicine cauldron? Long Yu was a little surprised. Yes. Liao Lele pursed his lips and smiled. Although his soul consciousness was born after we were incomparable, he knew about the former master of the bitter sea medicine cauldron and even told me about the power density. Of course, there's one thing that even you don't know about the alliance of the sufferers. If it's convenient, tell me. Long Yu laughed. If Brother Long wants to know, there's no problem. Liao Lele nodded with a smile. Now, in the 3-star regions near us, there is no alliance of the sufferers. The real origin of the alliance of the sufferers is another star region far away. But now that star region seems to have suffered a disaster, so all the sufferers have left our place and returned to their hometown. Speaking of this, Liao Lele looked a little sad. Dan still wants to find other people of the alliance of the sufferers. He followed the former master and was trapped in the netherworld realm by the Juyo Dragon Emperor thousands of years ago. He has never returned. I don't know what's going on there now. Another star region. Long Yu's expression was solemn. Previously, he only knew that with the eroding moon ancient region as the center, there were 3 main regions surrounding it. As for the other regions further away, they seemed to be separated by spatial cracks. Now, the 3 regions they were in seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. Long Yu was not very clear about the specific situation, but both the records of the Demigod College and the rumors that he had heard all along showed that. 3 sealed star regions. Among them, there were many relics similar to the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain, and the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain was just one of them. Long Yu was very clear about that. According to the records of the Demonic College, there were at least 10 relics similar to the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain in the 3 space zones. However, the Human Clan and the Demon Clan were not qualified to enter every god's relic. The eroding Moon Ancient Domain was one of the divine relics that was friendly to humans and monsters. Some of the divine relics had extremely harsh conditions to enter. Some of them didn't even allow groups of cultivators to enter. Only one person was allowed to enter at a time. There were so many of them. When I become a demigod or reach a higher level, I will definitely explore the outside world. No matter what the situation is, I will figure it out. I also want to go and have a look at the birthplace of the Alliance of the Sufferers. Long Yu nodded and said to Liao Lele and Dan solemnly. This wasn't a joke. The fact that Dan could recognize the effect of the 2 elixirs was enough to show how powerful the Alliance of the Sufferers was. Neither the Human Clan nor the Demon Clan had ever come into contact with it. Therefore, it was not without reason that Long Yu wanted to go to the Alliance of the Sufferers. By the way, I still don't know what the power density is exactly. Lele, tell me about it. Long Yu never thought that he would have to ask Liao Lele for advice one day, but he was not ashamed of it. If he didn't know, he could ask. After all, there were too many complicated and mysterious things in the world. Not everyone could understand everything. Liao Lele was very happy to answer Long Yu's questions. She was very happy that she could help Long Yu. The power density is like the difference between steel and cotton. The power density of a cultivator is exactly the same at the beginning, but when one steps into the demigod realm, the power density of a cultivator will start to increase. Liao Lele nodded and said, from the level 7 Great Dominator to the demigod realm, the power density can directly increase by 10 times, which also makes it impossible for a Great Dominator to fight against any demigod realm cultivator. Then it will be more difficult to increase the power density. Some of the power that Dan knows belongs to the gods. Its power density is 10 times that of the demigod realm, which is more than 100 times that of an ordinary cultivator. In addition, the power of the gods seems to be unable to increase the density. Its power density has reached the limit of this world. The peak is already the strongest existence. After listening to Liao Lele's explanation, he finally understood what the power density was. If the power density of the demigod realm was 10 times that of an ordinary cultivator, then if he took this elixir now, when he stepped into the demigod realm, would he have the power density of an ordinary cultivator 11 times that of an ordinary cultivator? As long as the power density was 100 times that of an ordinary cultivator, it seemed that he could become the power of the gods, of course. Long Yu was very clear that there seemed to be many kinds of power that he had now, but in fact there were only a few that he could actually use. One of them was, of course, the Golden Flame divine power. He had not comprehended it yet. Even if he opened the mark of the God of Fire, it would definitely take a lot of time to comprehend the Golden Flame divine power. If he could not comprehend 1% of the Golden Flame divine power, the power that Long Yu displayed would not be as strong as ordinary power. The second of them was the eternal divine text power that Long Yu finally obtained in the eroding moon ancient domain. the Hellshaker Divine Text. This divine text power was of the shadow attribute, and it was quite suitable for Long Yu. As long as he could completely grasp it, it would definitely be his strongest power. Moreover, compared to the Golden Flame Divine Power, the Hellshaker Divine Text was much easier to comprehend. If Long Yu used that elixir to strengthen the Hellshaker Divine Text, the effect should be quite good. At the very least, the power density would be twice that of other cultivators. Then, apart from experts in the demigod realm, he would not need to be afraid of any other existence. Even the gap between him and experts in the demigod realm would be greatly reduced. There were many other kinds of power that Long Yu had. Many of them were mainly at the enlightenment level. The main ones were the Dark Demon Divine Text, the Dark Flow Divine Text, and the Netherworld Divine Text. Long Yu had comprehended the power of these three divine texts a long time ago, but now it seemed that they were not that powerful when used. They could almost be retired from the stage of history. As long as Long Yu completely comprehended the Hellshaker Divine Text, Long Yu would almost never use these three enlightenment-level divine texts again. For Long Yu, the power that he usually used was naturally the strongest kind of power. If Long Yu obtained the power of other eternity-level divine texts, he could use them alternately with the Hellshaker Divine Text. After all, each divine text had a different special effect. When used in different situations, it might be able to change some stalemates. But now, Long Yu only had the Hellshaker Divine Text, so this was the only kind of power that he could use. Therefore, Long Yu decided not to take the elixir that could increase the density of power first. At the very least, he would have to wait until he completely comprehended the Hellshaker Divine Text. It was very likely that Long Yu could obtain the power of other eternity-level divine texts. It was hard to say, but when that time came, he could choose carefully. As for the other elixir that could double the strength of his body, Long Yu had no scruples and directly took it. It must be known that the strength of Long Yu's body had reached a bottleneck. Whether it was the Death Realm body refinement or the Fighting Celestial body refinement, there was no way to improve them anymore. If he wanted to improve the strength of his body, he could only start from other aspects. This elixir just happened to solve his urgent need. After Long Yu cultivated the Demon Dust Heart martial arts secret technique, he was very eager to obtain more body-refining martial techniques. He wanted to improve the strength of his body as much as he could. It must be known that as long as his body was more resistant to beatings, it would be more beneficial for the Demon Dust Heart. As long as he could hold on for a breath of time, it was very likely that the Demon Dust Heart could regenerate his body, making him an existence that was difficult to kill. Moreover, if the strength of his body was improved, the Demon Dust clone would not be so easily killed by his opponent. Long Yu directly swallowed the elixir into his stomach. What he didn't expect was that the strengthening of his physical body would actually double the strength of his physical body. It wasn't just a basic doubling of strength. The difference between the two could be said to be like the difference between heaven and earth. Long Yu's previous body strength, after the two body-refining martial techniques, was mainly increased by about 20 times. He originally thought that the effect of this elixir was to increase the strength of his body to 21 times the basic strength. He did not expect that after the elixir entered his stomach, it would completely transform his body. From the looks of it, after the transformation, his body strength would be 40 times stronger than cultivators of the same realm. This made Long Yu a little surprised. Was the effect of the other elixir the same? If so, then this elixir should be kept for the last use. It must be known that if he took it now, it would only increase the density of his strength by 1 time. If he took it in the future, it was very likely that it would be like the strength of his body, increasing the density of his strength by 20 or 30 times. Elixirs were rare. This could be seen from the situation in the Eroding Moon Ancient Domain. Even in the deathmatch round of the Eroding Moon Ancient Domain, the total number of elixirs did not exceed 5. Being able to obtain 2 of them was already quite good for Long Yu. Chapter 1587. The effect of the elixir was extraordinary. It made Long Yu's physical strength reach a whole new level. However, it was still impossible for him to fight against demigods with his physical strength alone. For Long Yu, the most important thing was to improve his martial arts level until he was at least a level 7 Great Sovereign. In that case, his basic strength and physical strength would be increased by about 10 times, which would be a great improvement for him. After taking the elixir, Long Yu took the other elixir and left with Liao Lele. There was also a divine pill that could increase the density of his strength, but he didn't intend to take it for now. If everything went well, he would only take it after he became a demigod. Before he started his secluded cultivation, he had to check the state of the entire Void Galaxy to make sure that most of the people in the Void Galaxy were making rapid progress. After all, the galaxy would soon be in war. The six-winged race, the machine race, and the sword race were eyeing Long Yu like a tiger watching its prey. It was impossible for them to let Long Yu go so easily. Moreover, the Star River of Void was the frontline battle between the human race and the demon race. They could rely on the divine spirit enchantment at the edge of the Star River of Void to deal with the demon race. The enemy couldn't attack, but as long as the enemy relaxed a bit, Long Yu could lead his people out and give them a heavy blow. No matter what, he had to pay attention to the two aspects of peak combat ability and overall combat ability. In terms of peak combat ability, Consort Yu had become a demigod, and the girl Ji Tao had controlled the body of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. Both of them could stand on their own. The two demigods together could at least stop the enemy in the galaxy for a long time. Next, there were Red Oriole and Moonsong. Long Yu gave them the ultimate creation items and asked them to absorb the power inside. They should be able to reach the demigod level in a few months. Also, there was Consort Yu's creation item. Long Yu didn't know who Consort Yu's creation item was given to. Anyway, there would probably be more demigods in a few months. Speaking of which, Long Yu reached the demigod level later than Red Oriole and Moonsong. By then, he probably wouldn't be a match for the two girls, unless he could comprehend 10% of the Golden Flame Divine Power. Otherwise, the two girls would be able to suppress Long Yu in terms of power density alone. There were still a few forces in the galaxy at the moment. The first was the White Feather race led by Thunder and Breeze. There were more than 300,000 clansmen in total. They had already selected some elites to train. 4 or 5 rank 7 martial rulers had already appeared. As for the White Feather Monstrous clan, there were over 1,000 martial rulers. That was an extremely frightening number. Merely from the 300,000 plus White Feather Monstrous clansmen, 20,000 of them would be enough to form 2 armies of rulers. This was a relatively important conventional combat force in the galaxy. They were very important. They had also obtained most of the cultivation resources, including the creation items, that the Void Galaxy had exchanged last time. The second force was from the Nine Nether clan. It was the Ghost Shadow tribe that had always been following Concubine Yu. There were over 100 of them, but basically every single one of them was a tyrannical existence above the 5th phase Great Ruler level. Furthermore, their combat strength far surpassed that of ordinary Great Rulers. This was because every one of the 100 or so experts of the Ghost Shadow tribe was proficient in hiding their tracks. They had basically completely comprehended the metal primordial power. After such a long time, with the existence of the primordial golden pool, many cultivators in the galaxy had improved greatly. Among them, the 100 or so people of the Ghost Shadow tribe had improved the most. The other 3 forces were the Blood Demon tribe led by Shui Luo, Boss Xiong, and Su Yuqing, the Grizzly Bear Demon tribe, and the Immortal Fox Demon tribe. These 3 forces originally had 10,000 people in the Emperor's army. But now, they had become armies of sovereigns. Their overall strength had increased by at least 10 times. This was the result of abundant cultivation resources. As long as there were enough cultivation resources and creations, many cultivators could quickly improve their martial arts realm. That was to say, they would be a little slower when they encountered a bottleneck, but they would still be much faster than ordinary cultivators. At least, they did not need to spend time on other mundane matters. They only needed to cultivate. When they focused, their cultivation speed would naturally increase greatly. There was another special force in the galaxy now. It was the group of people who had been with Long Yu since the beginning. Chihua and Huamei were a pair of fire fox demon tribe. Man Xin was a young general from the ancient Ming nation. The three of them cultivated very hard. Not only had their martial arts realm reached the 4th or 5th stage sovereign realm, but they had also almost comprehended the metal primordial power. Baizong, Yin Huanma, Yu Shuiyun, Yu Shengshi, Lu Guanming, Ling Han, Ling Yue, and others from the Jintian clan were a little slower. Their talent was not as good as Qi Hua and Man Xian's. They had only reached the great sovereign realm. Of course, this speed was already quite good. Gu Yixian, Gu Wanshan, Nanmining Xia, and Xiao Xing, who he had met in the North Snow Empire, were slightly behind. Gu Yixian had reached the 5th stage sovereign realm. The others were slightly behind, but they had also stepped into the great sovereign realm. Mo Zhaiqian, Hui Yuanbai, Sahan's Han, Xing Wu, and De Guijian's cultivation speed was also very fast. After obtaining enough cultivation resources, all of them advanced by leaps and bounds. What surprised Long Yu the most were Shi Yingwu, Xu Chan, and Feng Yusen. Their strength and talent were not weak. Now that they had reached the 6th stage sovereign realm, they had actually surpassed Long Yu. This was, of course, good news for Long Yu. The three women's talent and strength were top-notch. Moreover, Shi Yingwu and Xu Chan had inherited the Death Ancient Palace and the Azura Ancient Palace respectively. Their increase in strength would even be helpful to Long Yu. Long Yu still remembered that outside Planet White Feather, he had absorbed the power of 4 ancient palaces and eliminated more than a dozen opponents that should have been impossible to eliminate. These 4 ancient palaces could even help Long Yu comprehend the ancient God-forbidden technique, the 4 symbols killing prison. Next, the ancient God-forbidden technique, the 4 symbols killing prison, was naturally put on Long Yu's agenda. This technique surpassed the divine soul martial skills. If he could completely master it, it would definitely become a great killing weapon. It was something that other cultivators could not have. He had also obtained a cultivation method for an ancient God-forbidden technique from the Eclipse Moon ancient region. However, the difficulty of cultivating it was needless to say. In the 4 symbols killing prison, there were still 4 ancient palaces that could provide inspiration for Long Yu. However, there were no hints for the other ancient God-forbidden techniques. If he wanted to start cultivating from the beginning, it would be impossible to succeed without a few years of hard work. Therefore, Long Yu definitely wouldn't touch the new ancient God-forbidden technique for the time being. As for Qin Yashuang and Zi Su, it was beyond Long Yu's expectations. They were actually chosen by Heaven Fire Doyen as his disciples and began to learn blacksmithing techniques. This naturally made Long Yu heave a sigh of relief. He didn't need to learn blacksmithing from Heaven Fire Doyen. The current him didn't have the time to learn blacksmithing. After Long Yu understood everyone's condition, he returned to his miniature world to check on the state of the miniature world. Everything was fine in the neo-martial world. Moreover, when he returned this time, he deliberately went to see 2 people. The first person was naturally Yuhan Xin. She was a very important person to Long Yu. Therefore, Long Yu had always been thinking about her. The current North Snow Empire, or rather, the Northern Snow Empire, had already become one of the biggest forces in the new martial world. It had become a place that countless cultivators yearned for. It was about time for Yu Hanxin to come out. Long Yu found this woman and displayed his current strength. This made Yu Hanxin dispel her last bit of apprehension. She wanted to govern the Northern Snow Empire well. This matter had been completely achieved. If she continued to stay in Long Yu's small world, it was very likely that she wouldn't be able to keep up with Long Yu's pace. Now, because of the lack of cultivation resources, Yu Hanxin had only just stepped into the ruler's mystic realm. This was also because Long Yu would throw some creation items into his small world when he was free and specially give them to Yu Hanxin for her cultivation. Otherwise, in Long Yu's small world, she would at most be at the level of the emperor. According to Yu Hanxin's talent, if she had enough cultivation resources, her martial Dao realm would definitely surpass Long Yu's. She might even be stronger than Shi Yingguo, and Shuchan Longyu also found another person in his small world. This person was also a genius. Back then, he was stronger than Longyu, but was later crushed by Longyu. This person was called Blackblade. This young man was still cultivating in Longyu's small world, but he didn't receive any special care from Longyu, so he was still at the level of the Emperor. But even so, Blackblade managed to cultivate by himself and became a 6-star Emperor deep in the forest. If this was the Shunwu world of the past, it would be an unprecedented feat that no one would be able to achieve in the future. Blackblade's talent was the same as Yi Ziwei's. He didn't fully reveal it at the start. Yi Ziwei was taken away by Consort Yu, and she went on a triumphant path. As for Blackblade, he still refused to give in to Longyu, which made things a bit awkward. Longyu didn't want this person's talent to be buried, so he came to give him a chance to leave. But this brat was too proud and refused to hand over the secret martial art he practiced. Longyu still remembered that the secret martial arts effect was to increase the power of shadow attribute divine script by several times. For Longyu, this was definitely a very powerful secret martial art, but Blackblade still refused to hand it over. This time, Longyu didn't suppress his cultivation and gave him a choice. He could either hand over the secret martial art and leave with him, or be trapped here forever, becoming a part of Longyu's small world and die here. Chapter 1588. In any case, in Longyu's little world, Black Knife would not be able to obtain enough cultivation resources to break through the space barrier and leave Longyu's little world. Therefore, Longyu could be said to be fearless and unruffled. Finally, after a period of consideration, the young man named Black Knife gave in. He saw that Longyu had become so strong that he was about to enter the demigod realm, but he was still hovering around the level of the Emperor. Finally, he could not bear it anymore. He had no choice but to follow Longyu's instructions and hand over the secret martial arts technique that could strengthen the shadow divine characters. Then, he left Longyu's little world with Longyu. Otherwise, the gap between him and Longyu would only grow bigger and bigger until it was impossible for him to catch up. Even so, Blackblade still had a hostile attitude towards Longyu, or it could be said that he had the intention to compete with him. This caused Longyu to be quite surprised. This brat's willpower was not weak. It must be known that the gap between him and Blackblade was like the clouds and mud, yet Blackblade had not lost his confidence. This showed that Black Knife's mentality was very stable. Although Black Knife's martial arts realm had fallen behind, it was not impossible for him to catch up in the future. After Longyu obtained the cultivation method of the martial Dao secret technique, he brought Yu Hanxin and He Dao out of his micro-world. However, Black Knife was careful. The secret martial arts technique that he gave to Longyu was only the cultivation method from the 1st to the 6th level. He did not tell him the cultivation method for the last 3 levels. Longyu did not insist. He would cultivate the first 6 levels first. As for the last 3 levels, he could think of a way in the future. At the very least, he could exchange something with Black Knife. Longyu believed that when he faced a critical bottleneck, Black Knife would not refuse such a request. This martial arts secret art was called Shadow Spring. Every time a martial artist reached a new realm, they would be able to double the power of their shadow attribute divine characters. At the 6th realm, they would be able to increase the power of their shadow attribute divine characters by 6 times. Now, Longyu mainly used the eternal level hell-shaking divine script, which was also a shadow attribute divine script. Once he fully comprehended it and combined it with the shadow spring secret technique, he would be able to exert an extremely terrifying power. As for the 3 divination-grade shadow-type divine runes, Dark Demon Divine Rune, 9 Nether Divine Rune, and Dark Current Divine Rune, they could still be used under special circumstances. Combined with the Shadow Spring, they could display power no weaker than ordinary Eternal Hell Quaking Divine Runes. Longyu brought Black Saber and Yu Hanxin out and did not pay attention to them. Yu Hanxin went straight to the gathering place of Man Xian, Chi Hua, and the others, and integrated into the group. As for Black Knife, Long Yu had given him a limit. He could not leave the Void Galaxy, so he could go wherever he wanted. After leaving Long Yu's small world, Black Knife felt free. However, in this Void Galaxy, the power of creation still did not exist. For Black Knife, if he wanted to improve his martial arts realm, he would have to ask for help from Long Yu and ask Long Yu to provide him with cultivation resources. Therefore, even after coming out of Long Yu's small world, Black Knife's situation did not change. He still could not quickly improve his martial arts realm. And if he wanted to create something, then Long Yu would definitely let him use the last 3 levels of the secret martial arts technique to exchange for it. Of course, Black Blade might have some methods to obtain something created from the hands of others, but Long Yu could not care less about that. In any case, Man Xian, Chi Hua, and the others would not give Black Knife cultivation resources so easily. As for the Dominator legions of other demonic cultivators, Long Yu did not care. Black Knife might be able to offer something equivalent to the members of the Dominator legions of the demonic cultivator legions. Long Yu left the crowd and went straight to the ancient relic of the multi-winged race. Now, Consort, you should be going to help Ji Tao destroy the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race. However, when Long Yu arrived at the ancient relic, he saw a scene that surprised him. The demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race had not only been perfectly dealt with, but it had also been dealt with in an unusual way. This stone statue had actually been used by Consort Yu. The yellow sandstorm in the entire ancient relic of the multi-winged race had been cleared, leaving only the primordium gold pond in the center and the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race guarding beside the primordium gold pond. Consort Yu was controlling the stone statue on the side, making it make all kinds of strange movements. She was obviously making sure that the stone statue was obedient and would not suddenly break away from her control. The body of the Juyo Dragon Emperor controlled by Ji Tao, on the other hand, had turned into the form of a black dragon and was curled up to rest. It looked very relaxed and was resting with its eyes closed. Senior Consort Yu, how did you do it? Long Yu was a little surprised to see that the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race was so obedient, so he flew forward and asked, "It's a divinized technique of mine. The previous technique could control some powerful unnatural beings. Now that it has become a divinized technique, and I've also stepped into the demigod realm, I can actually control this demigod stone statue." Consort Yu smiled and explained. Hearing that, Long Yu nodded. Impressive, impressive. Now the overall strength of the Void Galaxy has increased. For now, including this demigod stone statue, there were 3 demigods in the Void Galaxy. If they were to fight the enemy at the critical moment, they would definitely not be weak. Even if the Ice God clan came to attack the Void Galaxy, they would definitely return in failure. The problem now is that Ji Tao still cannot use the congenital technique of the Juyo Dragon Emperor. Otherwise, her combat ability would be even stronger, and she wouldn't have been suppressed by the demigod stone statue for so long. Consort Yu thought for a moment and said to Long Yu, "Think about it. Do you have any ideas?" Hearing that, Long Yu looked at the enormous black dragon body of the Juyo Dragon Emperor and shook his head helplessly. The fruits of the Juyo Dragon Emperor's congenital techniques are all in the Netherworld realm. They have been swallowed by the Juyo Prison Steel and become my 8th technique. This process should be irreversible. That is to say, this sphere of Tartarus can no longer be transformed into the 7 fruits of the Juyo Dragon Emperor. What a pity. It was not that he was reluctant to give up the sphere of Tartarus, but that it was not under his control in the first place. It was completely under the control of the Juyo Prison Steel, and it was impossible to restore it now. What a pity. In this case, Ji Tao's combat ability will be greatly reduced. After all, for demigods, the divinized techniques are still very common methods. Consort Yu felt that it was a pity. It doesn't matter. I have the godly martial arts techniques, the way to gather spiritual energy, and even a forbidden technique of the ancient gods that hasn't been activated yet. You can all practice it. It shouldn't be any weaker than the regular divinized techniques. Long Yu said, and through the jade slipped to Jitao. Jitao had not grasped any martial arts techniques yet. She was only fighting with her physical strength and the revelation-level divine language of Tartarus. It was the same when she was fighting against the demigod statue. If she could practice gathering spiritual light, it wouldn't be weak to activate the divine characters of Tartarian with a gathering spiritual light alone. After all, she was already a demigod, and the density of her power was 10 times higher than that of regular trainers. Regular demigods might not even have the godly martial arts techniques, which already gave Jitao an advantage. Besides, Long Yu also had the forbidden technique of the ancient gods. If he could master it, it would be even more terrifying. It was a pity that it was impossible to master the forbidden technique of the ancient gods in a short time. Long Yu could only take it one step at a time. He didn't have a detailed plan for the following training. Everything depended on what was in the next level of the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet. Since there's nothing else here, I'll go and practice by myself. Long Yu said to Consort Yu and Jitao, "Go ahead. I need to start training too. I've got a lot of things in the eroding moon ancient region, and I haven't had the time to digest them yet." Consort Yu nodded with a smile. Jitao, on the other hand, started to study the godly martial arts technique of gathering spiritual energy. Long Yu had already cultivated the gathering spirit light to the large success realm. Although he would not be able to continue cultivating after giving the jade strip to Jitao, he did not want to cultivate this divine martial skill for the time being. His mind was on something of a higher level. The forbidden technique of the ancient gods mark in the ancient gods brain region, the advanced modified demigod source gray dark flame, ghost rope, and the eternal level hell shocking divine script were the things he needed to get his hands on first. In the ancient relic space of the multi-winged race, Long Yu found a remote corner and took out the 9 Hell Tablet. Then, he entered the inner space of the 9 Hell Tablet and prepared to start training. If anything happened outside, someone would definitely come to remind him. Long Yu left the Void Spirit Dragon Blade and the Dragon Bone Ancient Tower in the outside world and let them play with Jitao. After all, Jitao was just a young girl. She had been lonely for 1,000 years. Now that she had finally gotten out and the situation was getting better, it wouldn't be good for her to continue being lonely. Long Yu entered the second layer of the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet. He continued to engrave the ancient god seal of the Devil Dust Heart into his ancient god's brain region. He originally only had the last 3 layers of the Devil Dust Heart, and a total of 66 ancient god seals had yet to be engraved. However, it would take a long time to engrave these 66 ancient god seals. Of course, with the improvement of his martial arts realm and his understanding of various powers, as well as the comprehension mark in his brain region, his speed of engraving the 66 ancient god seals was more than 10 times faster than before. I only need about 7 days to engrave all 66 ancient god seals into the ancient god's brain region. Long Yu thought to himself. He didn't think much and immediately entered an intense training state. Chapter 1589. Long Yu's ancient god brain domain now had a total of 500 spaces. The enlightenment mark that he had obtained from the eroding moon ancient domain could increase his speed of comprehending various powers and engraving ancient god marks by at least 10 times. This took up 100 spaces. Long Yu then dealt with the ancient god marks of the pure world body and the devil dust heart. He cleared the first 6 layers of 132 ancient god marks, leaving only the last 3 layers of ancient god marks. In this way, only 232 spaces were occupied in his ancient god brain field. Moreover, the effects of the pure world body and the devil dust heart had increased by more than 5 times because of the 66 ancient god marks. It was already very good. For the current Long Yu, it was enough for the time being. In 7 days, he had engraved all the ancient god marks of the devil dust heart into his brain. After making some adjustments, he took out the gray stone that he had obtained from the eroding moon ancient domain. This stone also had an ancient god mark. It was unknown how many spaces it would take up in the ancient god brain domain. Therefore, Long Yu did not absorb it directly. Instead, he dealt with the ancient god marks of the devil dust heart and the pure world body before trying to engrave the ancient god mark. Jade branding mark. Long Yu learned the name of the ancient god mark. However, from the name, he did not know what the effect of the ancient god mark was. He could only find out when he engraved it into his ancient god brain domain. In the second layer of the core space of the 9 Hell tablet, Long Yu did not continue to go deeper. Instead, he stayed there and began to engrave the jade branding mark. Ancient god brain domain open. Traces of mysterious ancient god tattoos continued to be engraved in his ancient god brain domain, occupying his ancient god brain domain. Moreover, these jade branding tattoos actually took up more space in his ancient god brain domain than the previous comprehension tattoos. As the gray stone disappeared from Long Yu's hand, he realized that the jade branding mark had occupied 200 spaces in his ancient god brain region. Fortunately, he had cleaned up the ancient god seal of the pure world body and the devil dust heart. Otherwise, who knew what would have happened? It was very likely that the jade branding mark would have failed, which would have been very bad. When the jade branding mark was completely imprinted in Long Yu's ancient god brain region, he finally understood the specific effects of the jade branding mark. So this was a battle ancient god's mark. The runes he had comprehended previously had increased Long Yu's comprehension speed by 10 times, which was very helpful to his cultivation. There is also the ancient god seal of the pure world body and the devil dust heart, which increased the effects of these 2 martial arts secret techniques. The pure world body directly increased Long Yu's resistance to mental attacks and control methods, and the ancient god seal of the devil dust heart increased the speed at which Long Yu's body was reconstructed. Now that he had obtained the jade branding mark as an ancient god's mark, it occupied 200 spaces in the ancient god brain region, so its effects were naturally even more terrifying. After obtaining the jade branding mark, any attack of Long Yu's would be able to reduce the density of the enemy's power by half the moment it came into contact with someone else's power. This was an extremely terrifying ability. In other words, even if a demigod expert appeared in front of Long Yu and launched an attack against Long Yu, their power density would not be as much as Long Yu's, but only 5 times that of Long Yu's. It was equivalent to reducing the opponent's power by half. If he was facing an ordinary cultivator, Long Yu could easily reduce the opponent's power density by half, so that the opponent's power density could not even reach an ordinary power density, and it would be even more impossible for him to become an enemy of Long Yu. Just this jade branding mark alone had doubled Long Yu's combat power. There were too many good things in the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain, but it was a pity that Long Yu did not have more ancient gods marks, and he did not have enough ancient gods brain regions to engrave more ancient gods marks to strengthen himself. It seemed that if he wanted to continue to improve his strength in the future, he would have to think of ways to start with the ancient god brain regions. The effects of the jade branding mark completely exceeded Long Yu's expectations, and it was much better than he had imagined. Although it occupied 200 spaces in the ancient god brain regions, it was definitely worth it for him. At least, it was more worth it than adding the remaining ancient god seals of the pure world body and the devil dust heart. At this time, Long Yu's ancient god brain regions had basically been filled, and 432 spaces have been occupied, leaving 68 spaces. Long Yu thought for a while, and temporarily engraved the 4th, 5th, and 6th layers of the ancient god seals of the pure world body, a total of 66, into it. In this way, the effect of the pure world body was strengthened by 3 times, and it was more important than strengthening the devil dust heart. After all, Long Yu's devil dust heart only needed 2 breaths of time to reconstruct his fleshly body, which was already fast enough. In a battle, even half a breath of time wouldn't have much of an effect. However, the world pure body was different. Perhaps just a little bit of resistance to mental attacks would cause him to fall into a situation of no return. When the jade branding mark was completely engraved into the ancient god brain regions, Long Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. With the gradual improvement of his strength, he was also very clear that there were too many aspects that cultivators could improve in this world, to the point that it was dazzling. If there was a cultivator who could completely improve these aspects to the peak, how powerful would that cultivator be? Opening the ancient God-brain regions would start with 500 spaces, and if all 500 spaces were engraved with battle ancient god marks like the Jade branding mark, how powerful would the cultivator be? Apart from the ancient God-brain regions, the strongest battle weapon would be a divine source item. At least, until now, the strongest battle weapon that Long Yu had seen was this high-grade modified divine source item in his hand, the Dark Flame Ghost Cable. Some genius cultivators from other races would definitely have divine source items of this level. As for martial techniques, the strongest was the ancient god forbidden technique. In such a vast galaxy, there would definitely be some powerful existences who had mastered the ancient god forbidden technique. In terms of power, the eternal level divine rune was the strongest power under normal circumstances. However, there might be cultivators who were ahead of Long Yu, who had grasped a portion of the divine power similar to the golden flame divine power. There were also many other special circumstances. For example, divine elixirs. Long Yu had divine elixirs that could double the density of one's strength, as well as divine elixirs that could double the strength of one's body. These were all good things that could only be encountered by luck. If a cultivator could reach the peak in all aspects, how powerful would he be? He might not be far from the true divine spirit realm. As Long Yu thought to himself, he began to make up his mind and stepped into the third layer of the 9 Hell Tablets core space. Only after he had engraved all the ancient god marks in the Devil Dust Heart could he continue to move forward and reach the third layer of the 9 Hell Tablets core space. Now that he had finally stepped in, he discovered that this space was actually pitch black. There were 4 pitch black stone tables in the middle of this space. From these 4 pitch black stone tables, Long Yu could feel different but somewhat familiar powers. Death, Azura, Yellow Springs, Hell. For different powers were contained in these 4 pitch black stone tables. This caused Long Yu's heart to move. Could it be that the third layer of the core space was originally the place where the ancient god forbidden technique, the 4 symbols killing prison, was placed? According to these 4 stone tables, Geo Dragon Emperor had created 4 ancient temples and then cultivated the 9 Hell 4 envoys to control these 4 powers. However, the power that the 9 Hell 4 envoys controlled was only the power of Source Grade Divine Runes. Death Divine Runes, Azura Divine Runes, Yellow Springs Divine Runes, and Hell Divine Runes were derived by Geo Dragon Emperor based on the power of these 4 pitch black stone tables. They were definitely not comparable to the power of these 4 stone tables. Long Yu could feel that the power of these 4 stone tables was the power of Revelation Grade Divine Runes. Whether it was Death Divine Runes, Azura Divine Runes, Yellow Springs Divine Runes, or Hell Divine Runes, they were all Revelation Grade Divine Runes. They were much stronger than the power of the 4 stone tables that Shu Chan, Shi Yingwu, Dugu Yijian, and Yin Huanma had obtained. Only Revelation Grade Divine Runes? Long Yu was a little puzzled. This was because the ancient god forbidden technique, the 4 symbols killing prison, was too high. It was so high that Long Yu felt that if it wasn't eternal divine runes, it wouldn't be able to display its full power. However, thinking about it, it was very likely that the third layer of the core space was only a place for cultivators to cultivate the 4 symbols killing prison. The real, eternal divine runes were in the depths of the core space. No matter what, Long Yu had already arrived here. Then his cultivation would focus on the ancient god forbidden technique. However, he didn't start immediately. Before he started to study the 4 symbols killing prison, he first left the core space of the 9 symbols killing prison to find Shi Yingwu, Shu Chan, Dugu Yijian, and Yin Huanma. Long Yu kept the 4 ancient palaces temporarily. He wanted to try to comprehend the 4 symbols killing prison from them. After all, the 4 ancient palaces contained the Geo Dragon Emperor's understanding of the 4 symbols killing prison, which was very meaningful for Long Yu. What surprised Long Yu was that when he brought the 4 ancient palaces back to the 3rd layer of the core space of the 9 symbols killing prison, he found that he could actually rely on the 4 ancient palaces to summon Shi Yingwu and the rest. The 4 of them couldn't stay in the core space of the 9 symbols killing prison, but they could stay in their respective ancient palaces. Then, Long Yu placed the 4 ancient palaces on the corresponding black stone table. The power of the revelation grade divine runes on the black stone table was instantly absorbed by the 4 ancient palaces and became available for the 4 of them to absorb and comprehend. This was a very good opportunity for the 4 of them to comprehend. The revelation grade divine runes were still rare in the current Void Galaxy. Through the flow of the 4 revelation grade divine runes, Long Yu seemed to gradually comprehend something. Although the speed of comprehension was very slow, it was already much better than before. According to this situation, it wouldn't take long for him to comprehend the 4 symbols killing prison to the beginner level. Chapter 1590. Long Yu stayed in the 3rd level of the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet. He faced the 4 black stone tables and the 4 ancient palaces as he constantly comprehended the way to perform the 4 hell symbols. Originally, he only comprehended one of the branches, which could condense many lines of death to corrode the opponent and kill them. But now, he gradually began to comprehend the other 3 branches, which were the 3 powers of hell, underworld, and Shura. When he comprehended all 4 powers and could perform them according to the rules of the 4 hell symbols, he would be able to successfully perform the real 4 hell symbols. Even if he was only at the beginner stage of the 4 hell symbols, as an ancient God-forbidden skill, its power was much stronger than ordinary martial skills. Even if it was compared to the divine soul martial skills, it would definitely be much stronger. This was also the reason why Long Yu temporarily passed the Gathering Divine Light to Jitao to cultivate and did not cultivate the divine soul martial skills. It was because he could first comprehend the ancient God forbidden skill. In the process of cultivation, the comprehension pattern in Long Yu's ancient God brain domain kept circulating. It made his whole body bathed in an extremely mysterious aura. His comprehension of the 4 powers of death, underworld, Shura, and hell kept growing at an extremely fast speed. After obtaining the comprehension pattern, Long Yu's cultivation speed increased tremendously. This included the comprehension of various powers, the mastery of martial skills at the beginner stage, and the speed of carving the ancient God seal. Many aspects have been improved. To him, the importance was definitely not inferior to the Jade branding pattern. It was just that after he comprehended everything, the comprehension pattern would not be of much use. When he obtained other ancient God patterns, he would definitely have to change it. As for now, Long Yu was still in the process of cultivation. The usage of the runes of comprehension was indispensable. Without the runes of comprehension, he could forget about comprehending the 4 symbols killing prison to the beginner level in a short period of time. The ancient God-forbidden skill and divine soul martial skills were about the same level of cultivation as ordinary martial skills. From beginner to lesser mastery, phenomenal mastery, peak, completion, transcendence, and transcendent state. Even a beginner-level forbidden skill, the 4 faces hell, was far more powerful than a high-grade, unbounded martial skill. Therefore, even though it was difficult to cultivate, it was still a good idea to gain enlightenment of the forbidden skill. Even if he had only comprehended it to the elementary level, it was already an extremely powerful killing weapon. Previously, Long Yu had spent a total of 7 days to carve the ancient God seal of Devil Dust's heart. After that, he had spent even more time to cultivate the ancient God-forbidden skill, killing hell. Unknowingly, Long Yu, Shi Yingwu, and the other 2 stayed in the 3rd layer of the core space of the 9 Underworlds tablet for a month. During this month, Shi Yingwu, Shu Chan, Dugu Yijian, and Yanhuan Mo had also made great progress. They had almost finished comprehending their respective divine characters. Death divine characters, Azura divine characters, Yellow Springs divine characters, and Hell divine characters were still very important to them in battle. Most importantly, after comprehending their respective divine characters, the four of them had reached a higher degree of compatibility with their respective ancient palaces. Furthermore, the four ancient palaces had also begun to undergo some sort of transformation. Because they had absorbed the power of the divine characters, the four ancient palaces had begun to evolve towards a higher level. They were even vaguely moving towards the absolute beginning and unbounded levels, similar to the current void Nether Dragonblade. However, there was still a long way to go. If they only absorbed the corresponding divine characters of the divine characters, the four ancient palaces could at most become unbounded top-tier battle weapons. If they really wanted to evolve into something like the void Nether Dragonblade, they would probably have to wait until they absorbed the eternal divine characters. Once they succeeded, the battle weapons would not be any weaker than half divine-grade battle weapons. Although divine-grade battle weapons were powerful, for Long Yu, they were still no match for his void Nether Dragonblade in the later stages. After all, he could awaken the void Nether Dragonblade to the 12th level, but he had only awakened it to the 2nd level. Therefore, its power was still inferior to that of a divine-grade battle weapon. Of course, if he could fully master a high-level modified divine-grade battle weapon, its power would not lose to a fully awakened void Nether Dragonblade. However, if Long Yu wanted to fully master a high-level divine-grade battle weapon like the Dark Flame Ghost, he would probably need more time than to fully awaken the void Nether Dragonblade. In any case, after this month, the strength of Shi Yingwu and the others had directly increased by several times. Combined with their respective ancient palaces, their combat strength was already very strong. Of course, they could not compare to Long Yu, but against other cultivators of the same level, they could definitely crush them easily. To Long Yu, this month's time was even more important. The comprehension rune was constantly circulating, enveloping Long Yu in a layer of mysterious aura, allowing him to comprehend the four symbols killing prison at an unimaginable speed. In just a month's time, he had finally comprehended the other three types of energy: Death, Azura, Hell, and Yellow Springs. Comprehending the four types of energy at the same time was not a big problem for Long Yu. After comprehending the four types of divine-grade divine runes, he activated them according to the method recorded in the four symbols killing prison jade slip, and was able to construct a preliminary four symbols killing prison. In the four symbols killing prison, every type of energy was extremely important. The four types of energy complemented each other and enhanced each other. Compared to the single death line at the beginning, its destructive power was more than 100 times stronger. Long Yu made a rough estimation. As long as he condensed the four symbols killing prison and trapped his opponent within, the destructive power of the four types of energy would even surpass his Berserker Battle Dragon Fist that had nearly 200 layers of Berserker Battle Heavenly power. At this point, Long Yu could clearly confirm that it was time to eliminate Berserker Battle Heavenly power. Of course, it was still indispensable to increase the strength of his body. However, this was a passive effect, so Long Yu did not need to use this martial technique. As for the upper unbounded level martial technique, which was the Limitless Grasp, it might still be of some use to Long Yu, but there were probably not many places where he could use it. The four symbols killing prison was a forbidden skill of the ancient gods. Apart from being extremely destructive, it also had the effect of binding and sealing. The four types of energy would entangle the opponent, making it extremely difficult for the opponent to deal with it. In the process of being bound and sealed, the opponent would be corroded by the four types of energy and die. When he succeeded in learning the four symbols killing prison, Long Yu felt that his realm had more or less stabilized. He had stayed at the 5th stage Great Ruler realm for a long time. Now was the time to increase his martial Dao realm. From the 5th stage Great Ruler realm to the 6th stage Great Ruler realm, Long Yu's basic fleshly body and basic strength would increase by another 3 times. The increase in martial Dao realm brought about an increase in basic strength. It was the simplest and most straightforward strengthening. For Long Yu, the increase in martial Dao realm was only a matter of time. In just a day's time, Long Yu's martial Dao realm had successfully risen to the sixth-stage Great Ruler realm. He already had enough cultivation resources, and he had collected a lot of creation items. Now, he spent a day to absorb a first-grade heavenly crystal-grade creation item and directly expanded his small world to a radius of 10 billion miles. Then, he increased his cultivation realm. After reaching the sixth-stage sovereign realm, Long Yu temporarily stopped cultivating. This was because there was news from the outside world. The current situation in the Void Galaxy seemed to have been discovered by the foreign tribes. A patrol team of the foreign tribes wanted to investigate the vicinity of the Void Galaxy. This situation made everyone in the entire Void Galaxy vigilant. This was because everyone knew that the Void Galaxy was located between the territories of the Silverstone Tribe, the Divine Water Tribe, and the Soul Tribe. If the location of the Void Galaxy was exposed, it was very likely that they would be besieged by these three tribes. The consequences would definitely not be so simple to deal with. Therefore, this first patrol team of the foreign tribes had to be dealt with in the safest way possible. First, they could not be allowed to discover the existence of the human race and the demon race in the Void Galaxy. Second, if they had already discovered the situation in the Void Galaxy, they could not be allowed to return alive. The others had informed Long Yu of this matter, but they had not thought of letting Long Yu deal with it. After all, the major forces in the Void Galaxy were already very strong. A mere patrol team of the foreign tribes was not worthy of their attention. However, Long Yu had taken the initiative to lead a team of people to attack. He mainly suspected that the people in the Void Galaxy had never left this area. The edge of the Void Galaxy was protected by a divine spirit boundary. Ordinary people could not enter or leave at all, unless it was one of the 12 founding elders of the Void Galaxy who had obtained a divine remnant fragment. Not long after they had discovered the Void Galaxy, they had obtained a total of 12 divine remnant fragments and opened the defensive barrier of the divine spirit boundary to prevent anyone from entering or leaving. In such a situation, the outsiders must have discovered the divine spirit boundary's defensive barrier for them to discover the abnormality here. This part of the Void Galaxy was extremely barren. The three alien races had never paid attention to it before. After all, there were too many barren galaxies like this in the starry sky. Who would have the time to travel through the endless void? Even if they did, they would not have coincidentally found a divine remnant fragment and found out that this was a Void Galaxy. Only Concubine Yu, who had been to such a Void Galaxy and obtained a divine relic shard, knew about the uniqueness of this region. When the divine remnant fragments united to create a defensive barrier, it was already quite good that this place had not been discovered by the foreign tribes for more than a year. Now, the overall strength of the Void Galaxy was enough to resist the foreign tribes. Knowing that the patrol team of the Divine Sea Tribe was approaching, Long Yu was ready to set off with his team. He did not know the specific strength of the patrol team, so he had brought some people with him. Moreover, he had just mastered the Four Symbols killing prison, so it was a good time to practice and test its power. Chapter 1591. This time, Long Yu brought a lot of people with him to deal with the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe. There was no need for Consort Yu and Jitao, the two demigods, to appear because the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe would not have any demigod existences. There was no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Long Yu, Qihua, Man Xian, and the others had not fought together for a long time. Now that they had caught up in the martial Dao realm, it was a good time to bring them out to have some fun and see how strong they were. Long Yu chose a total of 6 people to go with him. Qihua and Hua, Mer, the Firefox couple, Man Xian, the Hardy Man, Fiu Xen, Feng Xiaofei, and Feng Haofeng, the 3 rising stars of the Xinfeng family. The current Xinfeng family was developing quite well. Other than Fengyu Xian, who had reached the 6th-stage sovereign realm, Feng Xiaofei, and Feng Haofeng, who had stepped into the 3rd-stage sovereign realm, the rest of the Xinfeng family had also stepped into the sovereign secret realm. With these 6 people, Long Yu quickly arrived at the edge of the void galaxy with the miracle fragment in his hand. He then used the fragment to open a door in the divine spiritual barrier. A group of 7 people filed out of the door. I've been in the void galaxy for so long, but this is the first time I've left the divine spiritual barrier. Hee. Feng Xiaofei was like a thief, looking around for information as soon as he came out. Feng Haofeng patted his shoulder and said calmly, "Be careful. Follow Big Brother Long. Don't run around." Isn't that obvious? It's not easy to fight with Big Brother Long. How can I run around? Feng Xiaofei chuckled. Qi Hua and Hua Mei were together. Man Xin was also looking around. As for Feng Yu Xin, she was beside Long Yu. She was very quiet and sweet. When we meet the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe, you guys can attack first. I want to see how strong you guys are. Don't worry, I will watch from the side. I won't let anything happen to you guys. Long Yu smiled and said, "Come on, Brother Long. You're only a rank 6 great ruler. Although you came back from the Demigod Academy, an eroding moon ancient region, no matter how strong you are, you can't be stronger than the 6 of us combined, right?" Feng Xiaofei smirked. Wind and Rain Xin was already a 6th phase dominator. Her strength was considered the strongest in Long Yu's circle. Moreover, Qi Hua, Hua Mei and Man Xin were all 5th phase dominators. All of them had the ability to challenge those with higher realms. Therefore, Feng Xiaofei hadn't seen Long Yu for a long time. It was normal for him to not know his current strength. Then you can have a look later. I hope that the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe isn't too weak. Otherwise, it would be too boring. The corners of Long Yu's mouth curled up slightly. He didn't retort because there was no point in talking. He would only know how strong he was by fighting. Shadow Domain. Wind and Rain Xin silently raised her hand. A wave of metal-type absolute beginning energy appeared in her hand and condensed into a stealth domain. The 7 people within this domain all disappeared. At least, they couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Even if they used their spiritual senses, they wouldn't be able to sense their existence from a distance. This was because their aura was shrouded by the shadow domain and was weakened to an extremely low level. Even with Long Yu's light of equalization, he could only sense the existence of the shadow domain within a 10-kilometer radius with his spiritual sense. This was a good method. Long Yu's eyes lit up. It seemed that bringing Wind and Rain Xion's group was the right decision. This way, they would be able to discover the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe first. Then, they could take different measures according to the situation. The Shadow Divine characters were mostly derived from the Metal-type Absolute Beginning Energy. Without any Revelation-level Shadow Divine characters to understand, Wind and Rain Xion had only understood the Metal-type Absolute Beginning Energy. However, she had completely understood the Metal-type Absolute Beginning Energy. This was not an easy thing to do. Even with the help of the Primordial Gold Pond, one needed extremely high comprehension and talent in order to completely comprehend the metal-attributed primordial force. Otherwise, it was very easy for one to be stuck at 80%, unable to advance any further. The 7 people quickly flew out under the cover of the shadow domain. Outside the Milky Way, it was still a dark and empty space. You had to go very far to see the stars. That was the territory of the Divine Water Tribe, which was closest to the Divine Water Tribe. Therefore, it was normal for the Divine Water Tribe to discover the divine spiritual boundary first. After sensing the existence of the divine spiritual boundary from such a long distance, they sent a patrol team to investigate. It was a good move. Unfortunately, they did not know what kind of experts existed in the Void Galaxy. It was impossible for the Divine Water Tribe to send out demigods for the first patrol team. After all, the Divine Water Tribe was a foreign race. Although they were slightly stronger than the human race and the demon race combined, there were less than 20 demigods. At most, there were 15 or 16 demigods. Demigod experts were strategically important. They would not be sent to patrol a boundary that suddenly appeared. Therefore, when Long Yu and the others found the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe, they found that there were 12 members in total. Among them, There was a 7th phase dominator for 6 phase dominators, and the remaining 7 were all 5th phase dominators. These 12 members of the Divine Water Tribe were like 12 water droplets moving in the void. They were very inconspicuous, but Long Yu and the others still noticed them. Long Yu and the others maintained a 5-kilometer distance from the patrol team and began to discuss countermeasures. I'm afraid that the 6 of you won't be able to deal with this lineup. How about this? Long Yu thought for a moment, then narrowed his eyes and said, "Leave the 7th phase dominator and the 2 6th phase dominators to me. You guys can handle the rest. Is that all right?" Apart from the 7th phase dominator and the 2 6th phase dominators, there were 9 other members of the Divine Water Tribe. Among them, 2 were 6th phase dominators and 7 were 5th phase dominators. For Man Xian, Chi Hua, and the others, they should be able to deal with them. In a battle like this, Feng Xiaofei and Feng Haofeng would be slightly inferior. It would be very difficult for them to deal with a single member of the Divine Water Tribe. They were at the 3rd phase dominator realm. Although they were stronger than normal cultivators, they would not be able to deal with a 5th phase dominator from the Divine Water Tribe. They would mainly be relying on Chi Hua, Huamei Man Xian, and Feng Yusen. In a situation where they were in the same realm, 1 against 2 shouldn't be a problem. Brother Long, you shouldn't have a problem dealing with a 7th phase dominator from the Divine Water Tribe, right? And you still have to keep 2 6th phase dominators busy. Feng Xiaofei was a bit doubtful. Haha, you haven't fought with me in a long time, so you don't know my current strength. Watch closely. You guys follow behind me and attack. Long Yu didn't explain too much. He only laughed. Then his entire body flickered and teleported away. He had the Netherworld Void Dragon Blade with him. Because he was fighting in the outside world, the Netherworld Void Dragon Blade's teleportation ability was very useful. He could travel extremely far in an instant, not to mention that he was only 5 kilometers away from the Divine Water Tribe's patrol team. In the blink of an eye, Long Yu appeared in front of the Divine Water Tribe's patrol team. In reality, let alone dealing with a 7th phase dominator and 2 6th phase dominators, he could easily kill all 12 Divine Water Tribe members. However, in order to test the strength of Man Xian and the others, Long Yu only planned to deal with 3 of them. Long Yu's appearance gave the 12 patrolling Divine Water Tribe members a big fright. However, when they sensed that Long Yu was only a 6th phase dominator, they immediately reacted. The body of the 7th phase dominator Divine Water Tribe member suddenly swelled up, forming a sparkling golden bubble that instantly expanded and enveloped Long Yu. This bubble contained a tyrannical corrosive power, and it attempted to completely corrode Long Yu's physical body. Unfortunately, this fellow underestimated the strength of Long Yu's physical body. Right now, Long Yu's physical body had already far surpassed the physical body of an ordinary 7th phase dominator. He didn't pay any attention to the corrosive power of the sparkling golden bubble. This corrosive power could only corrode the surface of his physical body. Then, the Devil Dust Heart would quickly reconstruct the surface of his physical body, preventing Long Yu from suffering even the slightest bit of harm. Of course, this process would still bring about considerable pain. However, the pain of his entire body being corroded was nothing to Long Yu. It was nothing out of the ordinary for him. He didn't defend against the attack of the 7th phase dominator Divine Water Tribe member. Instead, he focused on the other 2 6th phase dominator Divine Water Tribe members and activated the Boundless Grasp. He only used ordinary Profitation Grade 9 Nether Divine characters. But this move was enough to pull the 2 6th phase dominator Divine Water Tribe members to his side. They were also immersed in the golden bubble, suffering from the corrosive power. This caused the 7th phase dominator Divine Water Tribe member to immediately disperse the golden bubble. It didn't want to corrode its own people to death. Moreover, it discovered that Long Yu's physical body was extraordinary. This move definitely wouldn't be able to deal with Long Yu. Long Yu immediately used the Boundless Grasp. This time, He used the Prophetation-grade Dark Flow Divine characters to pull the 7th Phase Dominator Divine Water Tribe member to his side. This 7th Phase Dominator Divine Water Tribe member wasn't considered a peak expert. There was a huge gap between him and the peak 7th Phase Dominator Divine Water Tribe members that Long Yu had encountered in the Eroding Moon Ancient region. Moreover, Long Yu was even stronger than when he was in the Eroding Moon Ancient region. Therefore, he didn't feel any pressure dealing with these fellows. 3 boundless grasps directly pulled the 3 Divine Water Tribe members to Long Yu's side. At the same time, the 7th Phase Dominator Divine Water Tribe member was also affected by the terrifying effects of the Dark Flow Divine characters. His strength began to rapidly drain away. Chapter 1592. 12-Star Prison. Long Yu immediately used a technique that he hadn't used in a long time. Then, he trapped the 3 Divine Water Clan creatures within it. Then, Long Yu began to watch the show. As soon as Long Yu teleported over, Chi Hua, Man Xian, and the others didn't stay where they were. Instead, they rushed over. Tin Li was nothing to them because they had comprehended spatial divine text. Although it was only origin rank spatial divine text, it was still very easy for them to teleport Tin Li. When Long Yu was being corroded by the golden bubbles, they were a little worried. However, when they saw Long Yu pull 2 6th Phase Divine Water Race creatures to his side and the golden bubbles dissipated, they let out a sigh of relief. They could see that Long Yu was handling the situation with ease. In the confrontation just now, Long Yu hadn't even used any real attacks, but he had already completely suppressed the 3 Divine Water Race creatures. This allowed Man Xian and Chi Hua to focus on the opponents in front of them. Chi Hua and Hua Mei directly went to deal with the remaining 2 6th Phase Divine Water Race creatures. Both of them were demonic cultivators of the Fire Fox demonic clan. As soon as they met, they transformed into their true forms. 2 flaming foxes appeared in the air and used their innate divine abilities to fight against the 2 6th stage Sovereign Realm aquatic creatures. The abilities of the Divine Water Tribe were mainly corrosive. Basically, they were shadow-attributed divine characters or elemental acid-attributed divine characters. When facing Chi Hua and Hua Mei, these 2 kinds of powers would be completely suppressed. Whether it was corrosive liquid or shadow divine text. When they attacked Chi Hua and Hua Mei, the flames on their bodies would evaporate most of it. Then, the remaining would be blocked by the 2's defensive barrier. To them, it didn't have any destructive power. God Formation, Meteor Sky, Fire. Not long after Chi Hua entered the battle, he began to use a Grade 2 God Formation. This was an extremely powerful technique, and it was also the strongest God Formation technique he could use at the moment. Countless meteors of heavenly fire appeared in the air and shot towards the 2 6th Phase Sovereign Realm Water Race experts. The countless meteors came from all directions and sealed off the space around them. The 2 Divine Water Race experts had no way of dodging them and could only face them head-on. A barrier of acid appeared around the 2 6th Phase Sovereigns in an attempt to block the Skyfire Meteor. However, it was impossible. The power of the Skyfire Meteor was simply too wild. Instead, it completely evaporated the barrier of acid. Fire Ruler shocks the sky. Not to be outdone, Hua Mei took out a transcendent, unbounded battle weapon. It looked like it had been forged not too long ago. It was a long ruler with flames dancing around it. As soon as she activated it, it expanded in size, turning into a terrifying fiery blade light that slashed down at the 2 Divine Water Clan members. Was this battle weapon forged by Heaven Fire Doyen recently? Long Yu watched from the side with narrowed eyes. He was a little surprised. He didn't expect Heaven Fire Doyen to be able to forge a transcendent, unbounded battle weapon. This was a huge improvement. When he could forge a transcendent, unbounded battle weapon, Heaven Fire Doyen's weapon forging skills would be at the peak. As for the higher-tier demigod-grade weapons, he couldn't forge them. Demigod-grade weapons could only be formed after the death of a powerful demigod. It wasn't something that could be forged by a blacksmith. But if Heaven Fire Doyen could get his hands on the absolute beginning furnace, he could forge a combination of a divine beginning and a transcendent, unbounded battle weapon. For example, Long used Nether Void Dragonblade. If Long you could awaken the Nether Void Dragonblade to the peak of the 12th level, it would definitely surpass any other battle weapon. It could even reach the level of a high-grade, demigod-grade weapon. Of course, awakening the Nether Void Dragonblade was too difficult. He had only awakened it to the 2nd level. Looking at the battlefield, Qihua and Hua Mer had completely suppressed the 2 6th-stage sovereigns from the Divine Water Race. This made Long Yu a little disappointed. This patrol team of the Divine Water Race was really weak. They were basically just ordinary cultivators. None of them had the ability to fight above their realm. Facing Qihua and Hua Mer, it was only natural that they wouldn't be able to resist. Just Scarlet Flame's understanding of the Fire Divine text had reached the pinnacle. He had even learned the power of a prophetation-level Fire Divine text. It was as if his talent had allowed him to learn it naturally. It had to be said that his talent was extremely strong. As for Hua Mer, the transcendent, unbounded battle weapon in her hand gave her an absolute advantage when fighting against opponents of the same realm. Unless the opponent had some special moves, they wouldn't be able to resist her violent attacks. The two of them were even more invincible when working together. Man Xian was even more direct. He was facing 3 5th-stage sovereigns from the Divine Water Race alone, but he wasn't afraid at all. The Devil Saber in his hand swung wildly, unleashing all sorts of innate mystiques through the Devil Saber. At the same time, it was accompanied by a powerful saber technique of the Devil Saber. This saber technique was clearly an unbounded martial skill. It was most likely part of the Devil Saber inheritance. However, it would only appear when he reached a certain level. This was also why Man Xian hadn't mastered such a powerful technique before. With an unbounded martial skill, Man Xian didn't need any technique to fight. In addition, the Devil Saber battle weapon in his hand had become a powerful, transcendent, unbounded battle weapon. Perhaps it had been modified by Heaven Fire Doyen. The combination of the Devil Saber and the unbounded saber technique allowed him to slash at the 3 Divine Water Race experts. The power of each saber light was different. Sometimes it was steady, and sometimes it was explosive. When a saber light exploded with 3 times the power, a 5th-stage sovereigns from the Divine Water Race experts fell. They simply couldn't withstand such a powerful attack. On the other side, Fenyu Xian's fighting style was much gentler. She had comprehended many control techniques, and most of the god formations and martial skills she cultivated had a control effect. The remaining 3 5th-stage sovereigns from the Divine Water Race were completely under her control. They basically couldn't move, let alone fight back. It seemed that Fenyu Xian hadn't used any of her true abilities yet. When Man Xian finished off his opponent, he immediately turned around to help her. There was another 5th-stage sovereign who was playing with Feng Haofeng and Feng Xiaofei. Without a doubt, Feng Haofeng and Feng Xiaofei had a lot of tricks up their sleeves. However, the difference in their martial realms meant that they couldn't kill the 5th-stage sovereign. They could only use some tricks to stall it. Feng Haofeng faced the Divine Water Race expert head-on, while Feng Xiaofei assisted from aside. The two of them fought very seriously. Although their martial realms were a bit lacking, their understanding of various martial skills was outstanding. As a result, they weren't injured by the Divine Water Race expert at all. In fact, they were able to run circles around the Divine Water Race expert. Long Yu still remembered that when he was a 3rd-stage sovereign, he had a hard time dealing with 5th-stage sovereigns. For these two to be able to do this was already quite good. If they were 5th or 6th-stage sovereigns, they wouldn't be any weaker than Scarlet Flame Man Xian and the others. Feng Haofeng and Feng Xiaofei had completely different fighting styles, but their teamwork was flawless. Under the control of the two, the 5th-phase Great Dominator Realm Divine Water Race had expended a large amount of energy to no avail, nor was it able to help the other Divine Water Race members. In the end, he could only watch as his teammates were killed by Man Xian, Scarlet Flame, and the others. Then he would have to face the attacks of these people and eventually die. the entire Divine Water Race's patrol team was easily annihilated. In other words, only the 3 Divine Water Race experts that Long Yu had trapped hadn't died. However, it was about time. After all, the 12-star prison was only a Grade 2 God Array. If it could trap 3 opponents at the same time, it would be much easier for them to escape. After the other Divine Water Race experts were killed, the 3 Divine Water Race experts finally escaped from the 12-star prison. However, they were met with an even more terrifying technique. This technique was much crueler than what Man Xian, Qi Hua, and the others had used, and it was also much stronger. Qi Hua, Man Xian, and the others had killed the Divine Water Race experts in a very straightforward manner. Basically, they had used a single slash to kill them. However, what appeared in front of the 3 remaining Divine Water Race experts was an absolute domain of death. For Symbol's killing prison, Long Yu finally used the ancient God-forbidden technique that he had just learned. At this moment, the power of death, Azura, Hell, and Yellow Springs appeared and formed a domain of death. When the 3 Divine Water Race experts appeared, they were completely trapped in the 4 Symbols killing prison. The 3 Divine Water Race experts had no way to resist the terrifying attack of the 4 powers. Inside the death prison, the 4 kinds of energy circulated, constantly attacking the souls of the 3 Divine Water Tribe creatures, as well as their fragile physical bodies. Every time they familiarized themselves with one of the energy and wanted to resist, it would immediately switch to another energy to attack them. During this process, the 3 Divine Water Race experts were in great pain. Their souls were being tortured, but they had no way to resist. Die. With a single thought from Long Yu, the 4 Symbols killing prison completely retracted, and the 4 types of energy exploded at the same time, obliterating the spirit, soul, and physical bodies of the 3 Divine Water Race creatures. This was worthy of being the ancient God-forbidden technique. If it wasn't for the 4 Symbols killing prison, Long Yu would have had to use more than one technique to kill the 3 Divine Water Race experts. He might even have had to spend a lot of effort to do so. However, the 4 Symbols killing prison killed them in an extremely straightforward manner. Both their bodies and souls were destroyed, leaving nothing behind. Qi Hua, Man Xian, and the others were dumbfounded by this scene. Chapter 1593. Long Yu nodded with satisfaction. Only such a 4 Symbols death prison could be considered as the true 4 Symbols death prison. Not to mention the ordinary sovereigns of the Divine Water Race. Even a peak 7th stage Sovereign Realm expert wouldn't be an invincible existence to Long Yu. Alright, the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe has been annihilated. We can go back first. However, after this patrol team is annihilated, the Divine Water Tribe will definitely send more clansmen here. After we go back, we need to strengthen the security around here. Long Yu said, "That's right." Fenyu Xian walked over and said with a smile, "We have placed many detection eyes nearby. As long as they do not hide their tracks, they will definitely be discovered once they are within 100,000 miles of the Void Galaxy." Detection eyes? Long Yu was a little surprised, as he really didn't know how the people of the Void Galaxy had discovered the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe. That's something Senior Heavenfire Doyen refined. It's a probing weapon with the ability to turn invisible. Last time, he refined 10,000 probing eyes at once and distributed them around the Void Galaxy. Each probing eye can detect a radius of 25 miles. Basically, they've covered the entire area within 100,000 miles around us. Fenyu Xian explained. "I see." Long Yu was enlightened and nodded with a smile. It seemed that inviting the Heavenfire Doyen over was a great decision. If it was not for the detection eyes made by the Heavenfire Doyen, the people of the Void Galaxy would only discover them when they were at their doorstep. That would delay many opportunities. However, even with the probing eyes, the Void Galaxy would definitely face wave after wave of attacks from now on. Whether it was from the Divine Water Tribe or other races, as long as they discovered the existence of the Void Galaxy, they wouldn't stop easily. After all, the Void Galaxy was next to their territory. Of course, The Divine Water Tribe did not know that the Void Galaxy was jointly occupied by the Human Clan and the Demon Clan. They might have thought that the Divine Water Tribe or the Soul Clan had built a base here, so they came to investigate. Unfortunately, the strength of the first patrol team was too weak. They were so weak that they couldn't even send any message back before they were all killed by Long Yu and the others. Who knew when the next test would be? Long Yu didn't know, but he was too lazy to wait here anyway. He still had a lot of things to do. Many of the forces in the Void Galaxy had not experienced a real battle for a long time. If more patrol teams came, they could just let the others fight. Everyone could practice, lest they were not used to a sudden fierce battle. After dealing with the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe, everyone returned to the Void Galaxy. With regard to Long Yu's current strength, Feng Xiaofei was now completely convinced. Regardless of whether it was in the past or now, Long Yu had always been the leader of their group. This was already confirmed. Feng Xiaofei hadn't seen Long Yu for a long time, so he thought that they had made fast progress. However, compared to Long Yu, there was still a big gap. The gap between the martial arts realms was not very big, but in other aspects, Long Yu was much better than them. After returning to the Void Galaxy, Long Yu separated from them. He was going back to the 9 Hell Tablet to continue his cultivation. Although Long Yu had easily defeated the patrol team of the Divine Water Tribe, in fact, Long Yu was still very worried about the future. He hadn't met a demigod yet. Once he did, it would be very tricky. Consort Yu, Ji Tao, and the demigod stone statue of the multi-wing clan were only 3 demigods in total. Also, Ji Tao didn't use her congenital skills, so the stone statue's combat ability was limited. Consort Yu had just become a demigod not long ago, so her combat ability was probably not as good as those old demigods. Therefore, Long Yu needed to improve himself quickly. It was basically impossible for him to fight against demigod experts. After all, there was a huge gap in the density of power. However, now that he had the star branding mark and the 4 aspects killing prison, as long as he improved further, he might be able to deal with some regular demigods. At least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to resist them for a while. In addition, he still had a lot of skills that he hadn't started practicing. For example, the secret martial arts technique that he had obtained from Black Knife, the Spring of Shadows. The Spring of Shadows' secret martial arts technique was a powerful inheritance that Black Knife had obtained in the divine martial world of the Netherworld realm. The secret martial arts technique recorded in it was that every time the Spring of Shadows' secret martial arts technique was improved by 1-fold, the power of all the shadow attribute divine characters displayed by the cultivator would be doubled. For Long Yu, this was an excellent secret martial arts technique. However, this secret martial arts technique was also quite difficult to practice. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth required was no less than that of the heart of Devil Dust. It could be seen that it was also a powerful technique. Fortunately, Long Yu's small world had been integrated with the source of Sky Spirit. He hadn't used the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in it for a long time. So far, he had accumulated a large amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth, which was enough for him to practice the Spring of Shadows' secret martial arts technique. Of course, this secret martial arts technique still required a certain amount of time to practice. Long Yu planned to practice it in the core space of the 9 Underworlds prison tablet. In this way, he could be influenced by the 4 powers of the 4 symbols killing prison at the same time, allowing him to practice the 4 symbols killing prison to the lower realm faster. For any martial arts technique, the improvement from beginner to lower realm was not just a little bit. This was especially true for the ancient god forbidden technique. However, Long Yu was still far from the lower realm of the 4 symbols killing prison. He wasn't in a hurry. The ancient god forbidden technique could be cultivated slowly. It was definitely impossible to improve it to a high level in a short time. He constantly absorbed the rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the small world and poured it into his dantian. After practicing the secret martial arts technique Spring of Shadows, it would be a shadow vortex in the dantian. If this shadow vortex wanted to improve, it would need to absorb enough spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The difficulty of practicing this secret martial arts technique is really not much different from the heart of devil dust. Long Yu was a little emotional. He felt that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in his small world was rapidly dissipating, and he felt a little heartache. After all, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was slowly accumulated over the past few days. However, after thinking about it, other than using it to practice the secret martial arts technique, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth did not have much use, so he didn't think much about it. In his small world, a portion of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was produced in a new martial world, allowing billions of living beings to survive and cultivate. The other small portion was sent to the bone race and the vestigial race. The portion that could be used by Long Yu accounted for 80% of the total spiritual qi of heaven and earth. It should be known that the larger the territory of his small world, the faster the spiritual qi of heaven and earth would be produced. In addition to the effect of the Holy Spirit source, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth could be said to be inexhaustible. Long Yu was considering whether or not he should let more people come to his small world to cultivate. That way, his world energy would also be a bit stronger, and it would also be able to increase his overall strength to a certain extent. However, for the time being, there was still no time to find more people from the human race or the demon race to come to his small world. This idea could only be put aside for the time being. Instead of spending all his effort to attract more people to his small world, it was better to spend this time on cultivation, which was more practical for Long Yu now. The Spring of Shadows secret martial arts technique. In the process of Long Yu constantly absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, basically maintained a speed of 1 level a day. By the 7th day, he had finally cultivated the Spring of Shadows secret martial arts technique to the 6th level, which basically consumed all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that he had accumulated previously. That kid Black Knife has only cultivated the Spring of Shadows secret martial arts technique to the 4th level. He still needs a huge amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth to reach the 6th level. After all, that kid is only a cultivator at the level of the Emperor. Without his own small world, it is naturally impossible for him to have so much spiritual qi of heaven and earth. To be honest, it was already very impressive that Black Knife could cultivate the Spring of Shadows to the 4th level. In the new martial world, this kid must have been plundering the spiritual qi of heaven and earth everywhere and constantly taking elixirs and the like to reach this level. Otherwise, he would not even be able to reach the 4th level. Long Yu directly cultivated the Spring of Shadows to the 6th level. From now on, the power of any shadow attribute divine text would increase by 6 times. To Long Yu, this was simply a sharp weapon in battle. With the increased power of the shadow attribute divine text from the Spring of Shadows, coupled with the Jade branding rune in Long Yu's ancient God-brain domain, as long as Long Yu reached the 7th level of the Sovereign Realm, he would be able to contend against some ordinary demigod experts. The Jade branding rune could reduce the density of the opponent's power by half. To Long Yu, the effect of challenging a demigod above his level was quite good. Unfortunately, the Spring of Shadows did not have the cultivation method for the next 3 levels. That kid Black Knife was still unwilling to tell Long Yu about it, and Long Yu had no choice. He could not kill that kid, could he? If he killed him, he would not be able to obtain the cultivation method for the next 3 levels of the Spring of Shadows. In the 3rd level of the core space of the 9-Hell Tablet, Long Yu sighed. What he needed to do next was to familiarize himself with the powerful fighter he had obtained this time. The Dark Flame Ghost was a high-grade modified divine source item. The current Long Yu definitely could not unleash its full power. However, as long as he unleashed a small portion of its power, it would be able to greatly improve his strength. There was no doubt about this. In addition, he also wanted to familiarize himself with the Divine Mirror Stone. When he transformed into the Golden Flame Giant, he discovered that the Divine Mirror Stone was quite useful. Chapter 1594. Long Yu had only come into contact with divine source items after he entered the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain, so he didn't know much about them. But now, he knew that every divine source item basically contained a part of the demigod's power when he was alive. Modified divine source items would amplify this part of the power. The power contained in a high-level modified divine source item was infinitely close to that of a peak demigod expert. If a demigod expert obtained such a divine source item and fused it with a divine source item, it would be equivalent to increasing the power of a demigod expert. But for a cultivator who wasn't a demigod like Long Yu, the effect wouldn't be that terrifying. Long Yu took out the Dark Flame Ghost, which could be considered the most powerful weapon in the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain. It was a high-level modified divine source item in the shape of a long whip. However, the whip was burning with pitch-black flames, making it look extremely eerie and terrifying. The power contained in the whip was actually a combination of the element of shadow and the element of fire. The effects of the Spring of Shadow's martial arts were unable to enhance the shadow attribute divine characters of the Dark Flame Ghost chains, because this wasn't a power that belonged to Long Yu himself. The power of the Dark Flame Ghost divine text was of the eternal level and belonged to the demigod level. The density of its power was 10 times higher than normal power. For Long Yu, this kind of power was basically something he couldn't control, but he could try to control a part at first. Even if he could only use 1/10 of its power, it would be extremely powerful and could be used as an important attack by Long Yu. Long Yu started comprehending the Dark Flame Ghost divine text on the 3rd level of the core space of the 9 Hell Steel. At the same time, Shi Yingwu, Shu Chan, Dugu Yijian, and Yin Huanma were also on this level. However, the 4 of them stayed in their own ancient palaces, constantly comprehending the corresponding revelation level divine text and feeling the upgrade of their ancient palaces. All 4 of the palaces have been transformed into endless grade battle weapons. This was something that the 4 of them did not expect at all. Even Long Yu did not expect such a thing to happen. It seemed like the Juyo Dragon Emperor did not bring the 4 ancient palaces to this level. Perhaps to the Juyo Dragon Emperor, the 9 Nether envoys weren't too close or trustworthy. Therefore, only the Juyo Dragon Emperor could enter the space in the 9 Nether Prison Tablet. However, Long Yu was different from the Juyo Dragon Emperor. With his current strength, it was very difficult for him to fight against powerful races like the 6-winged race, the machine race, and the sword race. Therefore, while he was improving himself, he had to improve his trusted friends as well. The 4 ancient palaces have become endless grade battle weapons. Moreover, the 4 of them had also comprehended the corresponding revelation level divine text. Yellow Spring, Death, Hell, and Azura. These 4 types of energy were extremely powerful. Moreover, if the 4 of them worked together and all of them reached the 7th phase sovereign realm, they would probably be able to fight against an ordinary demigod expert. Of course, they could only resist for a short while. The difference in the density of energy made it difficult for the 4 of them to defeat a demigod, no matter how powerful they were. However, even if they could only resist for a short while, it would still be very rare. Long Yu still remembered that when the demigod of the Ice God clan appeared in the space-time tunnel near the Demon Clan's territory, those 7th phase sovereign realm demon generals were completely unable to resist. Now, it was already very impressive that Shi Yingwu and the others could resist for a while. Moreover, this did not seem to be their limit. Long Yu felt that if he cultivated the 4 aspects killing prison to the Great Completion realm, then the 4th layer of the 9 Hell Monument's core space would open. What would be inside? If it was related to the 4 aspects killing prison, then there was only one possibility, and that was the existence of the 4 eternal grade divine text powers. If Long Yu, Shi Yingwu, and the others could all comprehend them, their strength would rise to another level. In order to cooperate in actual combat, the 4 of them left the 9 Hell Monument and went to the ancient ruins of the multi-winged race to spar with the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race controlled by Consort Yu. Long Yu himself continued to study the Dark Flame Ghost. It was a good thing that he had already opened his ancient Godbrain realm and carved the comprehension runes within it. Otherwise, he would have to study it for at least a year before he could use 10% of the Dark Flame Ghost power. But now, he felt that he only needed a month to use 10% of the Dark Flame Ghost power and grasp the first usage of the Dark Flame Ghost. Every Divine Source artifact had a different usage. Just like when Long Yu transformed into the Golden Flame Giant and used the Divine Mirror Stone to construct Mirror City, then exploded it. This was one of the uses of the Divine Mirror Stone. The current Long Yu could not use this usage because he was no longer the Golden Flame Giant. As a rank 6 Great Ruler, he could not control the power of a demigod. At most, he could only use 10% of it. The so-called use of 10% of a Divine Source artifact power was actually just an abstract way of saying it. In reality, a Great Ruler Realm cultivator could completely use the power of a Divine Source artifact. However, due to the density of their own power, the Divine Source artifact's power was the same density as their own. In other words, once the full power of a Divine Source artifact was released by a Great Ruler Realm cultivator, it would not be 10 times the density of a demigod's power. Instead, it would be the same density as the Great Ruler's own power. Even if the power of the Dark Flame Ghost was completely made of steel, it would be like cotton when Long Yu used it. But even so, it was still a very powerful existence. One had to know that the Dark Flame Ghost contained the full power of a demigod. At the very least, when it was used, even if all the power was cotton, it could easily drown an army of sovereigns. This was the power of a high-grade modified Divine Source artifact. After the first wave of the Divine Water Race's patrol team was completely annihilated, they sent more patrol teams over. They were determined to find out what was going on. The second time, the White Feather Monstrous clan made a move. Qing Feng personally led some of the White Feather Monstrous clan sovereigns to attack the Divine Water Tribe's patrol squads outside the Star River. Due to the failure of the first patrol, the second patrol team sent by the Divine Water Tribe had a lot more people, and their strength was also a little stronger than before. However, under the siege of over 100 powerful great rulers of the White Feather race led by Qing Feng, the Divine Water Race's patrol team was undoubtedly sent to hell. In the third wave, it was the Savage Bear's army of sovereigns led by Boss Xiong who took action in the galaxy. Of course, not all the Savage Bear's army of sovereigns were mobilized. But even if it was only the great rulers, captains, and captains, together with the powerful Boss Xiong, it was enough to wipe out the patrol team of over 100 Divine Water Race members in the third wave. But this time, one of the Divine Water Race's patrol team seemed to have run away. The Divine Water Race member that ran away was very good at hiding, and it didn't intend to take part in the battle from the very beginning. It just followed the patrol team to find out the situation. Not to mention Boss Xiong. Even if Long Yu came in person, he might not be able to catch that Divine Water Race member. That was the real elite of the Divine Water Race, a powerful existence that could influence the strategic level. Sending that guy out was just to find out the situation. Now, the identity of the demon race in a galaxy was probably going to be exposed, but they weren't afraid. At most, they would have to face the siege of 3 alien races. The situation wasn't too serious. As for the mechanical race, the six-winged race, and the sword race that Long Yu had mentioned, they were far from seeing the shadows of the 3 major races. That was why they could rest assured for a while. After the third wave of patrol team was annihilated, there was no movement outside the galaxy for half a month. At this time, Long Yu had more or less comprehended the power of the Dark Flame Ghost. He had easily grasped 50% of the immortal-level Dark Flame Ghost power. As for the Dark Flame Ghost, he could completely activate all the power in it, but the density of its power was only the same as his own. During this process, Long Yu kept the Ball of 9 Serenities beside him at all times to slow down the flow of time around him. At this rate, he would reach the Demigod Level 3 to 4 months earlier than he had expected. One had to admit that the Ball of 9 Serenities, the 8th divine ability, was really too powerful. Just the ability to slow down the flow of time alone allowed Long Yu to progress more than twice as fast as anyone else. Coupled with the effect of the comprehension rune, his comprehension of the eternal divine text was also extremely fast. Right now, He had comprehended two types of eternal divine text. The first was the Hellshaker divine text that he had obtained in the eroding moon ancient domain. He had completely comprehended it, and the effect of the comprehension rune was extremely obvious when the flow of time was slowed down. The second type was the dark flame ghost's dark flame ghost power. The power of any divine text could be compressed into demigod power that was 10 times denser. However, only the eternal divine text, after transforming into demigod power, possessed the strongest destructive power. Long Yu knew that Consort Yu was currently cultivating like crazy, but he didn't know how effective it would be. Just when Long Yu was able to successfully activate the power of the Dark Flame Ghost, there was finally a huge commotion outside the galaxy. The Divine Water Race, the Soul Race, and the Silverstone Race had actually joined forces. Each of them had sent out an army of sovereigns, and they were advancing toward the galaxy. Chapter 1595. 3 armies of foreign sovereigns charged toward the Starry River from 3 different directions. Ever since an extremely sharp being escaped from the patrol team of the Divine Water Race, the Divine Water Race hadn't made any other moves. Now, finally, there was a new move, and it was 3 alien races at the same time. It could be seen that they must have discussed this beforehand. It was difficult to communicate with the other races. Direct communication was impossible, so they had to rely on other means. For example, Long Yu could use the Void Nether Dragon Blade's spiritual sense to communicate with the other races. It would take a long time for the 3 legions to work together. That was why they had been quiet for half a month. But what the 3 legions didn't know was that this was the moment that Long Yu had been waiting for. A legion of sovereigns consisted of 10,000 members. Of these 10,000, 1,000 were great sovereigns, and the other 9,000 were ordinary sovereigns. This was the kind of combat unit that Long Yu wanted to see. He had a special 8th mystique, the Ball of 9 Underworlds. The stronger the opponent the Ball of 9 Underworlds devoured, the stronger it would become. However, Long Yu hadn't had a chance to improve this mystique before. In the eroding Moon Ancient region, any opponent that died would be retrieved by the eroding Moon Ancient region. Therefore, Long Yu didn't have a chance to devour them. Before coming to the eroding Moon Ancient region, Long Yu only had a chance to devour powerful foreign tribes when he was completing missions at the Demigod Institute. However, the number was so small that he couldn't feel the Ball of 9 Underworlds mystique growing. But things were different now. There were 3 legions of foreign sovereigns coming to attack the galaxy. If he could kill all 30,000 foreign races from the sovereign's secret realm, how much would the Ball of 9 Underworlds improve? This was something that Long Yu didn't know. However, it wouldn't be easy to kill the 3 legions of foreign sovereigns. At the very least, it wasn't something that Long Yu could do alone. Fortunately, he only needed to devour the foreign corpses. When the Void Galaxy noticed the 3 sovereign armies approaching, it immediately readied itself for battle. In order to avoid losses, the Void Galaxy couldn't let the sovereign armies fight against the outsiders. After all, the Void Galaxy couldn't compete with the outsiders. The 3 outsiders had at least 800 sovereigns in their army, if not 1,000. This was just 3 of them. However, there were only a few sovereigns in the Void Galaxy. At the very least, a few hundred sovereigns would die every time they fought. If this continued, it would not be enough. Therefore, Long Yu decided to take action personally. Apart from demigods, Long Yu was the only one in the galaxy who could fight against an army of dominators on his own, and Long Yu didn't want demigods to show up on the battlefield so soon. After all, if Consort Yu or Jitao showed up, the 3 alien races would definitely send demigods over, which was not a good thing for the Void Galaxy. Therefore, he planned to rely on his own strength to completely stop the 3 sovereigns from entering the Void Galaxy. This mission was very difficult, but it wasn't impossible after learning the basics of the Dark Flame Ghost. The only problem was that he couldn't let anyone escape. That was why Long Yu needed some help. The helpers would mainly be paying attention to the stronger existences in the Sovereign's army. Long Yu might not be able to kill them with the Dark Flame Ghost's indiscriminate attacks. That was why he needed help to stop these fellows. After that, there was still a need for someone to obstruct them from behind. This was to prevent them from using some sort of mass teleportation technique and sending everyone from the ruler's army away. If that happened, not only would Long Yu's strength be exposed, but he would also not be able to obtain any benefits. This meant that Long Yu would need to pick some suitable helpers. In any case, it wasn't something a small number of people could do. Moreover, Long Yu could only deal with one sovereign's army at a time. The other two sovereigns' armies had to be stalled. All in all, the three foreign races had each dispatched a sovereign's army this time. This was enough to mobilize the entire Void Galaxy. This time, the Violent Bear Legion and the White Feather Legion were the main forces of these two sovereigns' armies. Their main mission was to stall the foreign sovereigns' armies in the other two directions. As for the Ghost Shadow Legion, led by Jiao Feng and Si Yuanbai, they had a total of 100 people with them. The rest were still cultivating in the Primordium Gold Pond, so not all of them were mobilized. 100 experts who were at least at the 5th stage Sovereign Realm were basically enough to cooperate with Long Yu. Moreover, the Ghost Shadow Legion's 100 people were extremely strong, and each of them had some special abilities and abilities. If they concealed themselves and surrounded a foreign sovereign's army, they definitely wouldn't let a single one of them escape. Long Yu remembered that the Ghost Shadow Legion's members all knew how to set up formations. And now, the Ghost Shadow Legion could set up a powerful formation called the Prison Ghost Seal. It could seal off the space within a certain range, preventing the foreign sovereign's armies from escaping. With the Ghost Shadow Legion's help, Long Yu would have enough time to wipe out the sovereign's armies in one fell swoop. The Prison Ghost Seal required 88 people to set up the formation. The remaining 12 people were mainly responsible for dealing with the stronger foreign sovereigns who were alone. These 12 people were the elites of the Ghost Shadow Legion, including Jiao Feng and Si Yuanbai. As soon as Long Yu came out of the 9 Underworlds monument, he immediately did a head count and led everyone out of the Void Galaxy. The Ghost Shadow Legion's members had absolute trust in Long Yu. Therefore, they immediately entered Long Yu's small world. Long Yu relied on the void traversal ability of the Void Nether Dragon Blade to quickly reach the edge of the Void Galaxy. Then, he took out the Divine Remnant Fragment, opened the Divine Spirit Boundary, and left the Void Galaxy for the starry sky outside. Void traversal could traverse over 1,000,000 miles in one go. Therefore, Long Yu only needed to traverse once to arrive in front of one of the foreign sovereign's armies. This was something that no one else could do. After all, the Void Nether Dragon Blade was an extremely powerful weapon. It had awakened to the 2nd stage of the absolute beginning divine grade, and was extremely compatible with it. Not everyone could have it. Moreover, the Void Nether Dragon Blade was already filled with water element absolute beginning energy. Using Void Traversal was a piece of cake. Get ready, we'll begin immediately. Right now, Long Yu was feeling a little excited. He hadn't expected 3 foreign sovereigns' armies to come knocking on his door as soon as he mastered the Dark Flame Ghost. He was looking forward to seeing the power of the Dark Flame Ghost, a high-grade modified Divine Source artifact. It was a pity that the Spring of Shadows couldn't provide the Dark Flame Ghost with a 6-fold increase in power. Otherwise, Long Yu wouldn't need to spend too much effort to take out the foreign sovereigns' armies. The Ghost Shadow Legion had already made their preparations in Long Yu's small world. Once Long Yu teleported over, they would spread out and surround the foreign sovereigns' armies. Long Yu first chose the sovereigns' armies of the Divine Water Tribe. After all, he'd already killed the Divine Water Tribe patrol team, so he was more familiar with this tribe. There were also the Silverstone Tribe and the Soul Tribe, so it wouldn't be easy to deal with them. After all, each individual Silverstone Tribe member was too big, and their sovereigns' armies were too large. It would be difficult to surround them all, so it was better to leave them until the end. As for the Soul Tribe, because they didn't have a physical form, it was easy for them to slip through the net. The most important thing for Long Yu's operation this time was speed. He couldn't give the other side the slightest chance, and he couldn't let a single one of them escape. Otherwise, by the time he finished off one of the sovereigns' armies, the other 2 sovereigns' armies would have already made their preparations. That would be troublesome. Before Long Yu teleported over, he first began to form devil dust clones in his small world. These devil dust clones were crucial to Long Yu's plan. If he were to rely on himself, he really wouldn't be able to wipe out the entire Sovereign's army in one fell swoop. But with these devil dust clones, the situation would be completely different. Let's go. Long Yu notified the members of the Ghost Shadow tribe in his small world. Then, he linked his thoughts with Little Void and used the Nether Dragon Blade to teleport to where the Divine Water tribe's Sovereign's army was. The members of the Ghost Shadow tribe came out of the small world of Long Yu as soon as they finished crossing through the void. Then, the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow tribe spread out in all directions, preparing to set up the sealing formation of the Hell Ghost. The other 12 experts of the Ghost Shadow tribe scattered in all directions. In the beginning, their duty was to clean up the Divine Water tribe's patrol squads. According to their scans, the Divine Water tribe's army of 10,000 sovereigns had a total of 3 patrol squads of dozens of people walking in front. These were the opponents that the 12 Ghost Shadow tribe members needed to deal with. A total of 11 of Long Yu's Devil Dust clones appeared in the void around the Divine Water tribe's Sovereign's army. The Divine Water tribe's army of 10,000 sovereigns was led by 5 7-stage sovereigns and 12 6-stage sovereigns. In total, there were 100 sovereigns. For Long Yu, it was still very easy to deal with. At least, with the strength of his current fleshly body, basically all attacks below the 4th-stage sovereign's level were ineffective against him. As for mental attacks and control methods, they were even less likely to affect Long Yu due to his worldly purity body. After the Devil Dust clones appeared, Long Yu immediately used his 8th mystique, 9 underworld sphere. A total of 12 9 underworld spheres instantly appeared around the Divine Water tribe's Sovereign's army, surrounding them and slowing down the flow of time in this region. Chapter 1596. The sphere of the 9 underworld enveloped the area where the 10,000 sovereigns of the Divine Water race were located. The flow of time in the entire area was slowed down by a fold. Other than Long Yu himself, the experts of the Divine Water race and the Sovereign Mystic Realm were all affected. All their actions would be slowed down by a fold. For Long Yu, this was the most basic ability. Without the sphere of the 9 underworld to slow down the flow of time, it was very likely that something special would happen that Long Yu wouldn't be able to deal with. In this ordinary Sovereign Mystic Realm army, there was no existence that could break through Long Yu's sphere of the 9 underworld. Even if the experts of the Sovereign Mystic Realm joined hands to attack the sphere of the 9 underworld, they wouldn't be able to kill it. After all, they didn't have enough time to attack the sphere of the 9 underworld. After all, the moment the sphere of the 9 underworld appeared, Long Yu immediately activated the Dark Flame Ghost Chain. After Long Yu activated the Dark Flame Ghost Chain, it instantly grew longer and longer. The long chain wrapped in pitch-black flames actually extended into the void. It was thousands of miles long, and it set off a wave of flames in the pitch-black void. Just like that, countless chains wrapped in pitch-black flames surrounded the entire Sovereign Mystic Realm army. It was also at this time that the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow tribe finally finished setting up the Hell Ghost Sealing Formation. A great ghost shadow formation instantly appeared on the battlefield, enveloping the entire area. Space was sealed. Endless chains wrapped in black flames instantly locked up and curled towards the center. Most of the members of the Sovereign Mystic Realm army didn't even have time to react before they came into contact with the chains wrapped in black flames. Then, their minds and souls started to turn to ash. The strongest aspect of the Dark Flame Ghost Chain was that it completely targeted the opponent's mind and soul. It burned the opponent's life and soul. No matter how strong the opponent's physical body was, it was useless. For the soul race, which had a stronger mind and soul, the Dark Flame Ghost Chain's destructive power would be a bit stronger. After all, the soul race's defense in this aspect was quite outstanding. However, dealing with the Divine Water tribe was like a tiger pouncing on a flock of sheep. There was no suspense at all. None of the sovereign secret realm cultivators in the Divine Water Tribe's sovereign army had expected to encounter such an attack. Even if it was a demigod, they would have a way to deal with it. However, it wasn't a demigod that had appeared, but a mere sixth-phase, great dominator human. This caused the sovereigns of the God-Water race to feel bewildered. How could this guy be so strong? A sixth-phase ruler challenging the entire Divine Water Tribe's ruler army? Although the strength of the Juggernauts was weak, such a thing had never happened before. To these sovereigns of the God-Water race, not even the 7th phase Sovereign Legion commander had ever seen a high-grade modified quasi-divine essence item. When the Dark Flame Ghost Chain appeared, burning with pitch-black flames and locking down the entire space, the entire Sovereign army was thrown into chaos. The Sovereign Secret Realm cultivators of the Divine Water Tribe all launched attacks at the Dark Flame Ghost Chain. The power of various divine characters rained down on the Dark Flame Ghost Chain like a torrential downpour. However, the Dark Flame Ghost Chain was a high-grade modified quasi-divine essence item. Even demigods would have a hard time destroying it, let alone these Sovereign Secret Realm cultivators. Even the simultaneous attacks of nearly 10,000 Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators couldn't cause any damage to the Dark Flame Ghost Chain. This wasn't a problem of the amount of power, but the level of power. Unless one used the power of a demigod 10 times the density, it was impossible to affect the Dark Flame Ghost Chain in the slightest. On the contrary, after the Dark Flame Ghost Chain stretched out, it only needed a light touch to completely incinerate the mind and soul of a Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivator. Not a single trace of ash would be left, leaving only the dead body floating in the pitch-black void. Then, the 9 underworld ball that was closer to the Sovereign Secret Realm would devour the body and use it to strengthen itself. The 9 underworld ball formed by long-used Devil Dust Doppelganger was also located in the 9 underworld ball's divine ability fruit in long-used Small World. Therefore, the foreign race corpses it devoured would also strengthen the 9 underworld ball's divine ability. The Dark Flame Ghost Chain only took a few moments to eliminate more than 2,000 Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators. As expected of a high-grade modified quasi-divine essence item, it was one of the best things that could be produced in the entire Eroding Moon ancient region. Of course, there was also the eternal rank divine runic source, which was also one of the most precious treasures. However, the eternal rank divine runic source was far inferior to a high-grade modified quasi-divine essence item when it came to increasing one's combat strength. This was also why Long Yu had chosen the Dark Flame Ghost Chain as his most important target. The members of the Sovereign Legion weren't the only ones shocked by the Dark Flame Ghost Chain's might. Even Long Yu himself was shocked. After all, this was the first time he had used this high-grade quasi-divine essence item. He had only guessed its might beforehand, but he hadn't expected it to kill more than 2,000 Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators in the blink of an eye. Even the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow Tribe who had set up the Hell Ghost Ceiling formation were even more shocked. Although they had obeyed Long Yu's orders and came to help set up the Hell Ghost Ceiling formation, they still had some doubts about Long Yu's plan. Could he really kill the entire Sovereign Legion on his own? They had their doubts at first. But after witnessing the Dark Flame Ghost coiling around like a dragon of black flames and slaying over 2,000 divine water race sovereigns with unparalleled might, the doubts in their hearts were completely dispelled. They found it hard to calm down and were overwhelmed with shock that came from the very depths of their bones. The entire battlefield was filled with a fiery, killing intent. The Dark Flame Ghost Chain was like a life-reaping scythe. Wherever it swung, large swathes of Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators would die. At this moment, the Dark Flame Ghost Chain had already extended for dozens of kilometers. It twirled around the Divine Water Race's army of 10,000 sovereigns. After another moment, more than half of the Divine Water Race's sovereigns had been killed or injured. The Divine Water Tribe cultivators near the Devil Dust clone had already focused their attention on Long Yu's Devil Dust clone. They could see that the crux of the matter lay with this human cultivator who was at the 6th stage sovereign realm. However, they were unable to differentiate between Long Yu's real body and his real body. They could only join forces and attack the closest Demon Dust clone. Unfortunately, the fleshly body of these Demon Dust clones was exactly the same as Long Yu's real body. Even if 100 ordinary Sovereign Secret Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators teamed up, they wouldn't be able to defeat a single Devil Dust clone. Some 5th and 6th stage Sovereign Realm Divine Water Tribe cultivators attacked the Devil Dust clone, but under the influence of the 9 Underworld Sphere, they couldn't unleash their full strength. Moreover, the Devil Dust clone also had combat strength. It couldn't just stand there and wait to be attacked. Whenever it was attacked, the Devil Dust clone would activate the divine characters and use the Boundless Grasp. Against 6th or 7th stage sovereigns, the Devil Dust clone would use eternal rank hell-quaking divine characters. Against ordinary sovereigns, the Devil Dust clone would use revelation rank divine characters. Not a single sovereign would be able to escape. Gradually, the Divine Water Tribe's army of sovereigns fell into disarray. They couldn't even organize an effective counterattack. Diaofeng, Si Yuan Bai, and the others originally wanted to return to protect Long Yu. However, when they cleared out the 3 patrol squads and returned to Long Yu's side, they discovered that they didn't need their help at all. Long Yu lightly raised his hand, and the Netherworld Dragon Blade appeared. Void Burial immediately erupted in front of him, enveloping the attacking Divine Water Tribe sovereigns and annihilating them. The 9 Underworld Sphere glowed with a ghostly light as it devoured the corpses of the Divine Water Tribe members. Long Yu could sense that the 9 Underworld Sphere's divine ability was rapidly improving, but it was still in the process of improving. He didn't know how much it had improved, so he could only wait until the battle was over to carefully sense it. Right now, the most important thing was to eliminate all of the Divine Water Tribe sovereigns as quickly as possible. They couldn't let even a single one of them escape. Under the Hell Ghost Seals formation, the Divine Water Tribe sovereigns couldn't leave this region of space. They could only desperately fight back. However, because too many of them had died in the beginning, they couldn't organize any effective resistance now. The largest group of 500 Divine Water Tribe sovereigns and Great Sovereigns attacked one of the Devil Dust clones. Although the Devil Dust clone was very strong, it was still completely annihilated by the 500 Divine Water Tribe sovereigns and Great Sovereigns. After all, their combined strength was still very terrifying. Although they couldn't destroy the Dark Flame Ghost Chains, they had no problem dealing with a single Devil Dust clone. Unfortunately, Long Yu had already noticed this group of Divine Water Ray sovereigns as soon as they had gathered. He waved the Dark Flame Ghost Chain and sent it flying towards the 500 Divine Water Ray sovereigns. These were ghostly flames from the Netherworld. These Divine Water Tribe sovereigns didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Their souls were incinerated one after another, leaving behind only their empty bodies that were devoured by the 9 Underworld Sphere. After the death of the 500 Divine Water Tribe sovereigns, there was even less resistance left. There were only a few Divine Water Tribe sovereigns who had relied on special methods to survive. There were also a few that the Dark Flame Ghost Chains hadn't thrown off and had barely managed to survive. They no longer had a chance to escape. Their last chance was to kill Long Yu, but unfortunately, they couldn't do that. The entire army of 10,000 Divine Water Tribe sovereigns was about to be completely annihilated. At this time, Long Yu finally began to carefully sense his 9 Underworld Spheres' growth after devouring nearly 10,000 Divine Water Tribe sovereigns. The results were undoubtedly gratifying. Chapter 1597. Long Yu made a quick calculation, and he estimated that he had devoured around 9,000 Sovereign Realm experts of the Water Divine race. The remaining 1,000 Divine Water Race sovereigns had all been annihilated by his other attacks. Most importantly, It was very difficult to preserve the corpses of those who weren't killed by the dark flame chains. If he used the eternal rank, hell-quaking divine runes to activate the boundless grasp, his opponents would basically be obliterated. But even after devouring 9,000 sovereign realm experts of the divine water race, Long Yu's Ball of Nine Underworld had received a clear increase in strength. If the initial strength of the Ball of Nine Underworlds was 100, then before the start of the battle, after Long Yu devoured so many of his opponents, its strength had changed to around 105. But now, after devouring 9,000 sovereign realm experts, the Ball of Nine Underworld's power had risen to 150. In other words, it had become 50 times stronger than before. This strength wasn't only reflected in the Ball of Nine Underworld's entanglement, but also in its devouring power. Most importantly, it had slowed down the flow of time. Long Yu could clearly feel that the flow of time around the Ball of Nine Underworlds was no longer half of what it had been before, but 60%. In other words, as the Ball of Nine Underworld's devouring power increased, he could slow down the flow of time even more. This is great. At this rate, if I cultivate for 10 days, only 4 days will pass in the outside world. If I devour more sovereigns, secret realm experts, the effect of slowing down the flow of time will be even stronger. Long Yu was looking forward to the Ball of Nine Underworld's devouring power even more. And all of this was because he had the Dark Flame Ghost Lock. This was a high-level modified divine source artifact that allowed him to eliminate the entire foreign sovereign army with just a little bit of help. His next target was the army of soul race sovereigns. In the past, Long Yu had liked dealing with this army of sovereigns. But now that he thought about it, the soul race didn't have any physical bodies. If their souls were completely destroyed by the dark flame chains, would there be nothing left for the Ball of Nine Underworlds to devour? Previously, when Long Yu was on a mission in the Demigod College, he had dealt with a lot of soul race members. However, his means at that time were not enough to completely destroy the soul of the soul race. He only killed them and destroyed their souls. Their mental power still existed, so it could be devoured. But now, if the Dark Flame Lone Ghost were to take action, it would obviously destroy both his spirit and soul. In that case, it was very likely that there wouldn't be anything left for the Nine Underworld Ball to devour. But no matter what, the soul race's sovereign legion had to be eliminated. Moreover, compared to the Silverstone race's sovereign legion, the soul race's sovereign legion was much easier to deal with. Thus, Long Yu made it his second target: clean up the battlefield. This kind of work was left to others. Long Yu had only devoured the bodies of the divine water race's sovereigns. They still had a lot of elixirs, weapons, and other things left. These things were extremely good. For the Void Galaxy, they could be counted as a huge amount of war wealth and resources. After Long Yu ended this battle, people from other Void Galaxies flew out from the Void Galaxy. They were ready to clean up the battlefield and take everything away. They didn't want to leave any traces behind. After that, Long Yu brought the members of the Ghost Shadow Tribe into his small world and let little Su travel through the void. He chose to travel through the Void Galaxy and head in another direction to stop the Soul Race's army of sovereigns. This army of sovereigns should be facing the White Feather Beast clan. However, they didn't have a direct confrontation. Instead, they were measuring each other's strength. Long Yu possessed the Void Spirit Dragon Blade. Furthermore, he had awakened it to the second layer. Thus, the distance he could travel through the Void Galaxy was extremely great. It wouldn't take him too long to travel through the entire Void Galaxy. In less than 2 hours, he passed through the Void Galaxy and arrived outside. Then, he traveled towards the reported location of the Soul Race's army of sovereigns. When he reached the battlefield, he discovered that the White Feather Beast clan's army of sovereigns had indeed split into 10 square formations. They were scattered across a large area of the void in front of him. It seemed like they had surrounded the entire area. However, Long Yu knew very well that the invisible soul race was in that area. Get into formation and get ready. We'll kill them all in one go. Long Yu ordered the members of the Ghost Shadow Tribe. Then, they obeyed and scattered in all directions. If it was a small-scale spatial blockade, Long Yu could just use the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Unfortunately, this was a battle between armies of sovereigns. There were a total of 10,000 of them. The absolute void domain of the ancient Dragonbone Tower couldn't cover such a large area. Therefore, the Ghost Shadow Tribe's prison ghost sealing array was a must. Once a member of the Ghost Shadow Tribe escaped, Long Yu's battle prowess would be exposed. This would definitely not be a good thing for the Ghost Shadow Tribe's future confrontation with the three clans. He couldn't let any of his opponents escape. The Ghost Shadow Tribe began to move. Naturally, Long Yu couldn't afford to waste any time. He first hid to the side. When the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow Tribe were in position, he condensed another 11 demon dust clones. The 11 demon dust clones were sent to different directions by the Void Spirit Dragonblade with water-type power. They surrounded the entire Soul Race's army of sovereigns. Originally, the Soul Race's army of 10,000 Soul Race's army of sovereigns was in a standoff with the surrounding White Feather Beast Clan's army of sovereigns. They didn't expect that it wasn't the White Feather Beast Clan's army of sovereigns that had come to deal with them, but something else. The Soul Race's army of sovereigns naturally couldn't start a battle so easily. Before starting a battle, they had to carefully weigh the strength of the White Feather Beast Clan's army of sovereigns. But before they could finish assessing the threat level of the White Feather Beast Clan's army of sovereigns, Long Yu had already arrived. The 11 demon dust clones appeared in the surrounding space, surrounding the 10,000 Soul Race's army of sovereigns. Adding on Long Yu himself, a total of 12 underworld spheres appeared. The flow of time instantly slowed down. Furthermore, the current slowing down of time was even more powerful than when they were fighting against the Divine Water Tribe. Kill! Without any hesitation, Long Yu activated the Dark Flame Ghostly Chain. The Dark Flame Ghostly Chain, which was engulfed in pitch-black flames, instantly extended into the void. It was as if a chain had bound the space. Although the Soul Race's members couldn't be seen or heard with their naked eyes, a massacre had already begun. The Dark Flame Ghostly Chain instantly extended, locking the entire space like an iron cage. Pitch-black flames filled the entire area. One could feel the Soul Race's members dying one after another in the pitch-black flames. The entire Soul Race's army of 10,000 sovereigns had already fallen into complete chaos. The result made Long Yu very sad. As expected, the Soul Race's members killed by the Dark Flame Ghostly Chain couldn't be absorbed by the 9 underworld sphere. After being killed by the Dark Flame Ghostly Chain, it was equivalent to the soul and spirit of a Soul Race's member dying. Nothing would remain. But no matter what, it was necessary to use the Dark Flame Ghostly Chain to deal with the enemy. Otherwise, there would definitely be some casualties in the Void Galaxy. This wasn't something that Long Yu wanted to see. There would be plenty of opportunities for the 9 underworld sphere to absorb the enemy in the future. He wasn't in a hurry. The 3 armies of 10,000 sovereigns were merely the 3 foreign races' probing actions. After the 3 armies of sovereigns were destroyed here, the other party would definitely make follow-up actions. At that time, Long Yu would have plenty of opportunities to absorb those foreign races. In fact, there might even be some foreign race demigods. I wonder what would happen if I let the 9 underworld sphere absorb a foreign race demigod. Long Yu was looking forward to it. After killing the entire army of 10,000 sovereigns of the Divine Water Race, Long Yu was already very familiar with this kind of thing. Now, he didn't miss a single one of the Soul Race's 10,000 sovereigns. He killed more than half of the Soul Race's sovereigns in one go. This scene caused the surrounding White Feather Monstrous Clan sovereigns to open their eyes wide. They simply couldn't believe that this was something that a rank 6 sovereign could do. Even a demigod expert wouldn't be able to do this, right? The existence of the Soul Race couldn't be detected with the naked eye. However, cultivators that could reach the sovereign secret realm had sufficiently powerful spiritual senses. Thus, it wasn't a problem for them to detect the existence of the Soul Race. And now, the people of the White Feather Monstrous Clan could clearly sense that the number of Soul Race members on the battlefield was continuously decreasing. Furthermore, the speed at which they were decreasing was unexpectedly fast. When they accepted the mission to stall for time, they were already prepared for a long confrontation. However, they didn't expect that in less than 4 hours, Long Yu would rush over from the other side. Moreover, he even used such a powerful method to kill the 10,000 sovereigns of the soul race. Long Yu's astonishing strength made the people of the White Feather Monstrous clan realize that they might really be following an extraordinary person. Originally, they had only come to the Void Galaxy to leave the White Feather Planet and find another way out. They didn't expect that after coming here, they would be able to obtain such abundant cultivation resources. Their cultivation speed was several times faster than before. And now, Long Yu had returned from the Demigod College in the eroding Moon Ancient region. He had become even more ferocious. He was actually able to fight an entire army of 10,000 sovereigns by himself. If it wasn't for the fact that they were worried that their opponents would escape, they didn't doubt that Long Yu would be able to completely annihilate the army of 10,000 sovereigns of the soul race by himself. His strength was truly astonishing. Was all of this because of the chained battle soldier that was burning with pitch-black flames? Many people looked at the chained battle soldier with burning eyes. However, the truth was that the dark flame ghost chain wasn't the only thing that they were interested in. Chapter 1598. The reason why Long Yu was able to deal with the foreign race's 10,000 sovereigns so fiercely wasn't just because of the dark flame ghosts, but also because of the jade branding rune he had unlocked in his ancient divine brain region. The effect of the jade branding rune was to reduce the power density of the opponent it came into contact with by half. Before reaching the demigod realm, everyone's power density was the same. However, when fighting against Long Yu, due to the effect of the jade branding rune, the opponent's power density would be reduced by half. This meant that the power of any of the opponent's techniques would be reduced by half. In other words, Long Yu's power density was 2 times that of his opponent's. This created a huge gap. Even without the Dark Flame Ghost Strand, Long Yu could just casually use a few techniques, such as the Berserker Fist Cannon or the Boundless Grasp, to instantly kill his opponent. Even if his opponent was a powerful existence at the 6th or 7th stage Sovereign Realm, it would still be the same. As long as the opponent didn't have any special techniques, they were nothing more than instant goods to Long Yu. Unless it was an existence at the peak of the 7th stage Sovereign Realm, like the one Long Yu had encountered in the eroding Moon Ancient region, only then would it be possible to fight against the current Long Yu. Moreover, the entire Soul Race, Silverstone Race, and Divine Water Race didn't have many such powerful existences. There were at most 200 people who could participate in the eroding Moon Ancient region, and among these 200 people, there were at most 20 to 30 people who possessed relatively strong battle prowess. Compared to Long Yu, there were only 4 or 5 people who could be a match for him. It had to be said that the current Long Yu had basically reached a level where he was invincible against anyone below the demigod realm. Moreover, he would even dare to fight against a demigod. Once he officially stepped into the 7th stage Sovereign Realm, he would be even more confident in dealing with demigods. On the battlefield, the Soul Race army of 10,000 sovereigns had already fallen apart. They simply couldn't withstand the endless slaughter of the dark flame-haunted ghosts. Although some Soul Race experts wanted to band together and attack the Devil Dust avatars in the surroundings, the worldly purification physique had become their only obstacle. Devil Dust's avatars continued to unleash their divine abilities and martial skills to kill the Soul Beast sovereigns. The Spiritas killed by Devil Dust's doppelganger could be devoured by the 9 underworld sphere. Long Yu didn't let a single one of them go. In the end, he devoured around 1,000 Spiritas to strengthen the 9 underworld sphere. However, along with the number of opponents that the Ball of the Netherworld devoured, the effects of devouring would become weaker and weaker. This was without a doubt. If he wanted to double the power of the Ball of 9 underworlds, he would need at least 4 or 5 legions of rulers like the Divine Water Race, of course. Long Yu was not particularly anxious. Just take it slow. After he devoured about 1,000 Soul Race beings, the entire Soul Race army of 10,000 sovereigns was almost completely annihilated. Immediately afterward, Long Yu let his devil dust clone dissipate and put away the dark flame ghostly chains. Then, he led the members of the Ghost Shadow tribe towards the last foreign sovereign's army, Silverstone Clan. After Long Yu and the others left, the White Feather Monsters Clan's army of rulers began to discuss the matter fervently. Like Qing Feng and like Tianlei were among them. I didn't expect him to already be so strong. Sigh. When I first saw him, I really didn't expect him to grow to this level. Like Tianlei looked in the direction that Long Yu had disappeared and shook his head with a smile. I did foresee it, but I didn't expect this day to come so soon. Like Qing Feng said with a smile. He had always thought highly of Long Yu and knew that Long Yu would definitely rise. However, he didn't expect that Long Yu would be able to reach the level of a demigod so quickly. Not to mention the current human race and Fey race. Even in the entire history of the human race and Fey race, there had never been such a terrifying existence. In any case, our Void Galaxy should be able to gain a foothold in this stellar domain, right? It's said that the three strongest races in our star zone are the six-winged race, the mechanical race, and the sword race. These three races seem to be planning to attack the human race and Fey race. I wonder if it's true. Whether it's true or not, we just need to do what we have to do. If they really attack us, I'll drag as many as I can down with me, even if I have to risk my life. Like Tianlei said with a somewhat fierce expression. Dad, why don't you try and see if you can break through to the demigod level? I think you've been a 7th phase sovereign for a long time. Like Qing Feng chuckled. How can it be that easy to break through to the demigod level? If it was that easy, the human race and Fey race wouldn't only have 7 demigods each. Like Tianlei shook his head and sighed. No matter how many cultivation resources you have, if you don't have enough talent, you can't become a demigod. But you, kid, your bloodline is the purest among this generation of White Feather Monsters clan. If I want to break through to the demigod level, I can only count on you. Like Qing Feng shook his head when he heard that. He was only a 5th phase sovereign right now. It was still a little far from him to become a demigod. However, he thought of someone, the Sage Emperor. He wondered how the woman who came out of the Netherworld realm with Long Yu was doing. In fact, when Long Yu returned this time, he didn't see the Sage Emperor. Furthermore, the Sage Emperor didn't seem to have come to the Void Galaxy. This made Long Yu a little worried. He didn't know how the Sage Emperor was doing in the outside world. Of course, whether it was in the human race or the Fey race's territory, the Sage Emperor shouldn't have encountered too much danger. Everyone had their own path. Long Yu didn't want to bring everyone to the Void Galaxy. But for the White Feather Monsters clan, the Sage Emperor was a very special hope. After all, her bloodline was extremely pure, and she was a descendant of the ancient White Feather Monsters clan. She was very important to the current White Feather Monsters clan. It seemed that the last time Qing Feng met with Long Yuxiang, he had already told him that if possible, he should go and find out where the Sage Emperor was. Long Yu agreed. However, he really didn't have the time to look for them now, because he didn't know when the attacks of the six-winged race, the machine race, and the sword race would arrive. Even if he didn't talk about these 3 powerful races, the attacks from the Silverstone race, the Divine Water race, and the Soul race would make it impossible for him to leave the Void Galaxy to look for them. After 2 hours, Long Yu arrived in the direction of the Silverstone race's territory. However, when he arrived, he discovered that the Silverstone race and the Violent Bear Monsters clan sovereign army had already started a small-scale battle. This made Long Yu feel rather awkward. Because they were already fighting, it wouldn't be easy to use the Dark Flame Ghost. Otherwise, he would accidentally injure his own people. Or rather, it wouldn't be an accidental injury. It would be more accurate to call it a manslaughter. Once the Dark Flame Ghost was used, it would be a massacre. Even the Violent Bear Monsters clan's 7th phase sovereign wouldn't be able to resist Long Yu's attack. In the battlefield, every Silverstone race's body was extremely huge. In front of the Silverstone race's sovereign army, the Violent Bear Monsters clan's body was like a tiny dot. However, the strength of the Silverstone race depended on the Martial Dao realm. It wasn't that the bigger the body, the stronger the strength. After Long Yu arrived, Eldest Bear immediately went to find him. Brother Long, the Silverstone race seems to have gone crazy. When they saw us, they charged at us. We had no choice. We didn't want to fight them on purpose. Moreover, both sides have already suffered losses. About 100 or 200 of them have died. Eldest Bear had a distressed look on his face. It's okay. Long Yu shook his head. However, his expression was still very solemn. Ask our brothers to retreat as soon as possible. Otherwise, we won't be able to fight this battle. Eldest Bear chuckled mischievously. Don't worry about that. I've asked our brothers to feign an attack. If they want to leave, they can leave immediately. I'm waiting for you to come. However, you have to be careful, Brother Long. These Silverstone races' combat strength isn't weak. Moreover, they fight like madmen. And Long Yu nodded his head and narrowed his eyes. He looked at the Silverstone race's sovereign army. They were indeed like madmen. After the violent bear monstrous clan's sovereign army started to retreat, some Silverstone race's sovereign army directly teleported into the bear army and started to self-destruct. In an instant, several violent bear monstrous clan's sovereign mystic realm experts died. This made Long Yu quite surprised. These Silverstone race's sovereign army actually had such a strong determination to die. What exactly was driving them? Regardless, the violent bear monstrous clan's retreat was very fast. Moreover, the Ghost Shadow Tribe's 88 experts were already in position in the surroundings. The Hell Ghost Sealing Array was immediately activated. This was a targeted array. The Ghost Shadow Tribe's 88 experts could completely let the violent bear monstrous clan's sovereign army leave the array and trap all the Silverstone race's experts within it. Countless Silverstone race's experts chased to the edge of the Hell Ghost Sealing Array and attacked it. Unfortunately, most of the Silverstone race's sovereign army were ordinary sovereign mystic realm cultivators. They couldn't do anything to the Hell Ghost Sealing Array that was set up by 88 experts at the 5th phase and above. Moreover, this array was specially created by Heavenly Fire Doyen according to the characteristics of the Ghost Shadow Tribe's members. Its effect and stability were first class. When the Ghost Shadow Tribe's members laid out the array, its might would increase to a certain extent. Soon, the violent bear monstrous clan's sovereign army flew out of the Hell Ghost Sealing Array. A total of about 9,500 Silverstone race's experts attacked the Hell Ghost Sealing Array. As such, the Ghost Shadow Tribe's experts couldn't hold on for much longer. However, Long Yu's reinforcements soon arrived. 11 Devil Dust clones appeared outside the Hell Ghost Sealing Array. Then, they entered the array and directly activated the 9 Underworld Sphere. The entire Hell Ghost Sealing Array began to slow down. The Silverstone race's movements seemed to have slowed down in the eyes of outsiders. The Silverstone race's 10,000-strong sovereign army was the last foreign race's army. As long as this group of Silverstone race's experts was dealt with, Long Yu would be able to cultivate for a period of time. Moreover, he was looking forward to the 9 Underworld Sphere devouring this group of Silverstone race's experts and increasing its might. The Dark Flame Ghost Cable appeared once again. Chapter 1599. Not even the Dark Flame Lone Ghost could deal with the Silverstone race so easily. That was because the Silverstone race was simply too big. The 10,000 sovereigns of the Silverstone race occupied too much space. The Dark Flame Lone Ghosts couldn't encircle the Silverstone race's sovereigns even if they stretched out to such an extent. They could only wipe them out bit by bit. In the past, there was a cool-down period when Long Yu's Ball of 9 Underworld wanted to devour foreign races to strengthen itself. However, this cool-down period had disappeared after Long Yu had come out of the eroding Moon Ancient region. Long Yu had known about this from the very beginning. That was why he wanted to devour the foreign race's sovereigns. The specific reason was related to the water element origin essence. After merging with the water element origin essence, the Ball of 9 Underworld had the effect of slowing down the flow of time. At the same time, it had also eliminated the cooldown period for devouring foreign races. Long Yu hadn't paid much attention to it at the time. However, after discovering it later on, he knew that merging the water element origin essence into the Ball of Nine Underworld was definitely the right choice. Otherwise, it would have been a long and arduous process for the Ball of Nine Underworld to devour enough powerful existences to undergo a qualitative change. The dark flame-haunted ghost appeared once more, and it circled the void, killing sovereign realm experts of the Silverstone race one after another. Then, the Ball of Nine Nether swallowed the corpses of the Silverstone race experts, turning them into nourishment for the Ball of Nine Nether's ability. It was just like the white feather race from before. Every member of the tyrannical bear race that had just retreated couldn't hide the shock in their eyes when they saw Long Yu annihilate the Silverstone race so easily. They hadn't expected Long Yu to be so powerful. If they had known this would happen, they would have retreated when the Silverstone race attacked. All they needed to do was delay for time. That way, the tyrannical bear race wouldn't have lost over 200 sovereigns. However, when they saw Long Yu annihilate the entire Silverstone tribe's 10,000-strong ruler legion, everyone in the brutal bear tribe's ruler legion was extremely excited. After all, this represented the overall strength of the entire Void Galaxy. Eldest Bear could see that following Long Yu and Shuel Luo to develop in the Void Galaxy was the best decision he had ever made in his life. Right now, there were already 3 demigods in the Void Galaxy. Now that Long Yu was here, they would definitely be able to loot more training resources from the nearby galaxies and make the Void Galaxy develop even faster. It was true that the Void Galaxy was still far from being comparable to the human tribe or the demon tribe, but in terms of peak combat power, it had reached nearly half of the human tribe or the demon tribe, and this was only after a year of development. What would the situation be like in another year? It was said that there were already 3 experts in the galaxy who were trying to break into the demigod level. With the ultimate creations from the eroding moon ancient domain, it was very likely that there would be 3 more demigods in the galaxy. All of this filled Boss Bear with anticipation. Right now, Boss Bear's cultivation was also at the peak of the 7th phase Sovereign Realm. If things continued like this, wouldn't it be possible for him to step into the demigod level as well? Everything was progressing in the predetermined direction. Just as Boss Bear was thinking about this, the Dark Flame Ghost had already finished off the 10,000 sovereigns of the Silverstone race. The black flame stretched for 10,000 li, and the void was almost scorched by them. Countless sovereigns of the Silverstone race were incinerated into nothingness. Not a single trace of their soul was left. Not a single Silverstone race member managed to escape. As they fled, the 9 Underworld's Ball's time-slowing effect enveloped them. The Hell Ghost Ceiling Formation, constructed by the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow tribe, also became an insurmountable barrier for them. All of the Silverstone race members were dead. Long Yu's sphere of 9 underworlds once again swallowed the remains of over 9,000 Silverstone race corpses. He could feel the strength of the sphere of 9 underworlds continuously rising, and he felt a faint sense of excitement in his heart. The sphere of 9 underworlds was an extremely unique 8th divine ability. What would it eventually transform into? He could feel that the power of the 9 underworlds ball had already doubled. After devouring 3 sovereigns of the foreign races, the 9 underworlds ball's power had finally doubled. Moreover, the time-slowing area it had constructed could slow down the flow of time by 70%. This meant that Long Yu's cultivation efficiency had increased by another level. It's done. Everyone, search for the spoils of war and take everything that can be taken away. Even if it's the weapons we can't use or the pills we can't consume, bring them back. Give them to the heaven-fired Doyen, Liao Lei, and the others to refine them into basic materials that are useful to us. Seeing that all the Silverstone race members have been killed, Boss Bear immediately gave the order to clean up the battlefield. This was exactly what Long Yu wanted to say. In any case, no matter what the 3 foreign races sent to attack the Void Galaxy, they would not be able to return alive. Even if they sent a demigod, Long Yu would make sure that they would not be able to return. The Void Galaxy definitely had the strength to do so. Now, it could be said that the other party knew nothing about the overall strength of the Void Galaxy, which was absolutely advantageous to the Void Galaxy. You guys clean up the battlefield. I'm going back first. Long Yu left all the benefits to the others. As for himself, he did not need the weapons or the pills of the foreign sovereigns of the foreign races. To him, these resources were no longer of any use. In other words, he no longer cared about these things. After leaving the eroding moon ancient region, he had all kinds of resources that he needed. What he needed now was to make use of these resources. He returned to his small world and began to cultivate other aspects of things. Although he had cultivated a powerful secret martial art like the Spring of Shadows, successfully learned the Four Symbols Death Prison, and mastered a high-level modified divine source item like the Dark Flame Lone Ghost, there were still some things that he hadn't grasped yet. That was the divine power of fire and the divine power of golden flames. These were the most powerful means he had at the moment. The divine power of golden flames was a power that was 100 times denser. Even if he used it against a demigod, he would be able to crush them. No matter how slow it was for him to comprehend this power, he would eventually have to learn it. Before that, he had to make some preparations. The most important thing was to collect some ethereal wine, which he could get from the demigods, but he didn't think it was enough. If possible, he would like to get more. Therefore, he had to make a trip to the demigod college and find out where the divine wine came from. Secondly, he still had 4 abilities that had not been divinized. If he added the Ball of 9 Underworlds, he would have 5, which he cared a lot about. Moreover, he could fuse some divine character essence or absolute beginning essence into the innate god fruit to make the innate god fruit stronger. If he wanted to become stronger, he would have to increase his martial arts realm to the 7th-stage Great Ruler, continue to improve the Four Symbols Death Prison, and finally comprehend the divine power of golden flames. But no matter which one it was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. In comparison, it was better to collect some divine rune essences or absolute beginning essences. He remembered that in the soul race territory, there would be a lot of shadow essence. To Long Yu, this was a good thing. At the very least, it could help him improve his remaining 3 divine abilities. Among his 8 innate god fruits, there were 2 shadow essences, 1 spatial essence, 1 water absolute beginning essence, and 1 metal absolute beginning essence. The Ball of 9 Underworlds, strengthened by the water absolute beginning essence, had the effect of slowing down the flow of time and eliminating the cooldown of devouring. The Hand of 9 Underworlds, strengthened by the metal absolute beginning essence, had the effect of forcibly immobilizing the opponent for 3 seconds. This was also a great method for him to deal with demigods in the future. At least, it could restrain demigod experts to a certain extent. Next was the Path of 9 Underworlds, strengthened by the spatial essence, which could disintegrate any spatial divine character power. It was enough for Long Yu to have enough capital to escape in a disadvantageous situation. The 2 shadow essences, on the other hand, strengthened the Eye of Shadows and the Book of Shadows. The Book of Shadows had been infused with shadow essence, and it could allow Long Yu to imitate some of the more unique existences. In this state, he could comprehend certain types of energy much faster. For example, he could imitate the Ice God race and comprehend Ice attribute divine characters much faster. Or he could simulate a giant skeletal life form, which would allow him to comprehend the Berserker divine character faster. However, Long Yu rarely used this function. He would only simulate it when he was comprehending a power. For example, when he was comprehending the power of the shadow attribute divine characters, or when he was comprehending a technique from the 9 Underworld steel like the 4 phases killing prison, he would imitate the appearance of the 9 Underworld dragon, which would allow him to comprehend faster. The effect was not bad. It could increase his comprehension speed by at least 30%. As for the Shadow Eye, it made Long Yu's probing ability even sharper. He was able to discover things that he couldn't discover in the past. It allowed him to still have the ability to probe his surroundings even when his spiritual sense was restricted. There was still the Soul Seal Siphon, the dragon's breath of 9 underworlds and the hunter of 9 underworlds left. Long Yu did not strengthen them with the divine character essence or the absolute beginning essence. Let's strengthen them first. Thinking to himself, Long Yu decided to go to the territory of the soul race soon. Right now, as long as he was not surrounded by demigods of the soul race, his life would not be threatened at all. This also gave him the confidence to go to the territory of the soul race. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.